Chapter 4020. They had all heard of Jingxue. She was famous all over the world. Firstly, it was because of her beauty. Secondly, it was because of her martial arts. She was one of the top masters in the world. Although she was not as good as masters like Shun, Xingjing, and Meng Yuan, other than those three, no one else could surpass Jingxue. This Jingxue, everyone's expression was ugly. If they had known of Jingshue's name, they would not have sat by and watched those three do as they pleased. Now, they were dead, and they were despised by Jingxue. They had no one to say anything to. Why did Jingxue come to our Sky Dragon sect? Someone was curious. Someone said in shock, did our Sky Dragon sect offend the Lotus sect? Although the Sky Dragon sect was strong, it was still far from the Lotus sect. One was one of the 5 major sects of Tiannan, and the other was only a local tyrant. It's also possible that she has ulterior motives. Someone snorted. Could it be that she's taken a fancy to our martial arts? That's not impossible. Our Sky Dragon sect's martial arts are still unique, right? That's still not as good as the Lotus sect, okay? Everyone began to discuss and argue endlessly. Chu Li and Jingxue returned to his courtyard. Just as he was about to speak, the lotus flowers in the pond in the courtyard all bloomed and released all kinds of light. They condensed in the air and formed 3 golden lotuses. 3 golden lights shot into Chu Li's mouth. He was not allowed to dodge. He felt 3 clear streams flow down his throat, and in the blink of an eye, they flowed through his organs. Then a formless power formed. His eyes lit up, and then the lotus diagram appeared in his mind, as well as the slowly growing lotus seeds. Jingshue's eyes widened as she saw several lotuses condense in the sky above Chu Li. There were 6 in total, forming a circle and enveloping him. The 6 beams of light fell on Chu Li's body, illuminating him until he was crystal clear, as if he had become a crystal statue. However, his organs could not be seen. They had also become crystal clear. Chu Li's feet slowly left the ground and floated in midair. The beams of light kept turning him transparent, as if expelling all the impurities in his body. All the Lotus sect disciples saw him in midair, as well as the lotus in the sky. The strange phenomenon formed was quite spectacular. They looked up at him. Although they did not know what antique study it was, looking at the lotus, it must be the Lotus sect's martial arts. Could this be the sun-moon lotus planting scripture? There were a few people who cultivated the scripture of sun and moon lotus, but Chu Li was the only one who had perfected it. Could it be that there were more levels after mastering the scripture of sun and moon lotus? After 15 minutes, the heaven lotus slowly dissipated, and Chu Li slowly landed on the ground. When he opened his eyes, a smile appeared on his face. He felt that his body was light, as if it was crystal clear, without any impurities. His body and soul became more closely connected, and his 5 senses became sharper and clearer. Jingxue smiled and said, "Congratulations, senior brother." Chu Li said, "I've finally reached the 6th level. There's still a long way to go." He had thought that there would be a golden lotus of virtue condensed. After all, he had resolved the great crisis of the lotus flower sect. Condensing 3 golden lotuses of virtue directly was also an anomaly. There were differences between the virtuous golden lotuses. Some were big, some were small. Every single one of them had different powers. The 3 he had were all filled to the brim, and they were extremely beneficial to him. Not only did it increase the heavenly lotus god's descent by 2 levels, but it was also more important to the transformation of the body. At his level, his body was already as pure as it could be. Even if he cultivated the marrow cleansing technique, the improvement would be limited. This time, the marrow cleansing technique was extremely beneficial to him. It was equivalent to increasing his aptitude, and it would speed up any martial arts he cultivated. Jingxue said, "The power that they descended shocked me. I wanted to run away." Chu Li nodded lightly. The power of the 6-petaled heaven lotus was indeed shocking. As they spoke, Su Xian arrived gracefully on the lotus seat. She looked Chu Li up and down and smiled. "You're different indeed. You condensed 3 golden lotuses of virtue in one go. You must have done something extraordinary." Your merits are immeasurable. Chu then told her about his experience. Su Xian's bright eyes flashed. Her usually calm face could not help but change. This is incredible news, Su Xian exclaimed. I'll go report to the sect leader first. Chu smiled and nodded. Jingxue said, Masters Jr., you can't let a guard down. A tiger and a sheep can only be friends for a while. It won't last long. That's true, Su Xian sighed. It's a pity that the enlightened masters are the children of heaven and earth. They're not something that humans can compare to. Jingxue frowned and nodded lightly. This was something that no one could overcome. It was like being born into a wealthy family. They were born with everything and did not have to pursue it hard. On the other hand, those who were born into a poor and weak family had to pursue everything hard to obtain. They might not get what they wanted even if they pursued it for a lifetime. An enlightened master was not someone that humans could catch up to. It was useless no matter how hard they tried. This was the reality. It was just like how a chicken could never fly like an eagle. She suddenly frowned. Masters Jr., did any disciples leave the sect? Yes. Su Xian said, since Shunxing is not a threat, there's no need to hide in the sect. There are many things to do. There are many things to do in a sect. Sealing the mountain and locking the sect could only be done for a short period of time. What's wrong? Su Xian saw that her expression was not right. Jingxue said, it's not good. Where are their identity tags? Jingxue said, not good. Where are their identity tags? Su Xian's expression changed. She quickly said, let's go and find Masters Jr. Xian Qing. She dragged Jingxue to the basilica and entered without announcing herself. She saw Xian Qing sitting on a cattail hassock. The basilica was empty, but did not seem lonely. Instead, it was quiet and peaceful, giving off an indescribable sense of comfort and ease. Jingxue did not say much and extended her hand. A jade tag flew up from a wall and landed on Chu. Chu caught the jade tag and disappeared on the spot the next moment. He appeared in a bustling capital city. In a restaurant, the two of them were fighting fiercely. All the tables and chairs around them were turned into powder and smoke. The people who were watching the show were leaning against the wall and widening their eyes in excitement. Chu scoffed. Jingxin. His words seemed to have magic. The two people who were fighting suddenly separated and looked at Chu. Their expressions changed. One was a handsome middle-aged man. His white clothes were messy, and he was drenched in sweat. He looked battered and exhausted. He was looking at Chu happily. He recognized Chu at first glance. The other person was a young man with handsome features. He squinted his eyes and stared coldly at Chu. He scoffed. Jingru, Chu said, looks like you're getting younger, Jingxin. He could sense the great change in Jingxin's temperament. He was no longer like when he first entered the Lotus sect. His soul seemed to have been purified. You should have called me senior brother, Jingxin said. Chu shook his head. How can I be your senior brother to someone with ulterior motives? I should have killed you with a palm if I knew you would become like this, Jingxin said coldly. Chu looked at the other handsome middle-aged man. Masters Jr. Suning, you should go back first. Be careful of him. He's very strange. Suning nodded. He might be another Meng Guangyuan. Chu smiled and nodded. Suning took a deep look at Jingxin and glided downstairs. Jingxin sneered and did not stop her. Someone would naturally stop her. He only had to stop Jingru. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4021. Chu disappeared the next moment. He returned the next moment. Jingxin frowned. Chu smiled. Jingxin, you guessed correctly. The other two have been dealt with. Does the Church of Nine Specters want to go all the way and provoke the Lotus sect? Hand over the secret Lotus technique, and I'll let you go, Jingxin said coldly. Chu could not help but laugh. Jingxin, you've cultivated the secret Lotus technique and felt that the secret Lotus technique would be extremely beneficial to the Abyssal Tome. So you told the Church of Nine Spirit about it, causing them to covet us? That's right, Jingxin said. I'm telling the truth, not trying to sow discord. The secret lotus technique is really helpful to the Book of Nine Specters. Chu Li sighed. You're born to be fickle. Don't you have any feelings for the Lotus sect? I have feelings for the Lotus sect, but not for their disciples. Jingzhen scoffed. I didn't interact with them at all, but I want to kill you. But it's different for junior sister Jingxue. As he spoke, a strange smile appeared on his face. Chu Li's face darkened, and a light flashed in his eyes. Bang! Jingzhen was suddenly sent flying. The black light on his body flickered violently, as if he was going to collapse at any time. Chu Li sneered. You're quite capable. No wonder you're so arrogant. Jingzhen slid down from the wall, his eyes wide in disbelief. Chu Li saw his thoughts about Jingxue. He wanted to capture Jingxue and torture her, humiliate her, and treat her as a plaything. In a rage, Chu Li made a killing move, and the god-punishing thunder sword shot out. It kept improving, and the power of the god-punishing thunder sword increased greatly. It was twice as powerful as before. However, he did not expect Jingzhen to have a strange power. He did not notice it before, but when Jingzhen was about to die, he suddenly used it to block it. This saved Jingzhen's life, or he would have died. The black light on Jingzhen's body flickered continuously, as if he was breathing. He kept recovering and strengthening himself. The black light grew stronger. Chu Li narrowed his eyes. What technique is this? This is the power of the Book of Nine Specters. Jingzhen sneered proudly. After cultivating the Book of Nine Specters, I can borrow the power of the abyss. Chu Li nodded in realization. I see. He could also borrow the power of the golden pool, but he needed to get close to the golden pool. He didn't expect that the Book of Nine Underworlds was even better, as it didn't need to get close to the Nine Underworlds. Jingzhen snorted, You can't kill me. As long as the Nine Serenities Abyss exists, I won't die. Ha 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 ha. At this point, he laughed maniacally. Ha ha, Jingru, if you can't kill me today, I'll capture Jingxue tomorrow. At that time, I'll definitely play with her in front of you. I'll let you watch with your own eyes, but be helpless against her. You want to kill her with a single palm strike. When he saw Chu Li being humiliated, he felt unusually delighted and wanted to provoke Chu Li even more. When Chu Li and Jingxue became famous in the martial arts world and were in the limelight for a period of time, he was immersed in his cultivation, enduring inhumane pain. Finally, he had successfully cultivated the Nine Hell Treasured Manual. The first thing he did was to suppress Chu Li's limelight and snatch Jingxue away. The Nine Evil cult was destined to rise. Meng Guangyuan had a fortuitous encounter and advanced by leaps and bounds, successfully cultivating the Nine Hell Treasured Manual in one go. On the other hand, he had the secret lotus technique and found a secret technique in the Sutra Library. With the help of the two, he also quickly cultivated the Nine Hell Treasured Manual. Although Meng Guangyuan took first place, Meng Guangyuan had already disappeared, mysteriously disappearing from the world. The sect had already determined that he was dead, and his soul had completely dispersed. He didn't reincarnate in the Nine Underworld's abyss. There were only two people in the world who could do this. One was Xin Xing from the Extreme Monarch sect, and the other was Jingru from the Lotus Flower sect. They determined that it was Jingru, because Meng Guangyuan had gone to the Lotus Flower sect to seize the secret lotus technique. He must have died in Jingru's hands. The Church of Nine Hell naturally wouldn't let it go. They had Jingzhen, who was enough to stop Chu Li. The Church of Nine Hell was stronger than the Lotus Flower sect. As long as they obtained the secret lotus technique, they would be like a tiger with wings, and they wouldn't have to be afraid of the Lotus Flower sect. Therefore, they decided to attack the Lotus Flower sect. They would start with the soft target and find an ordinary Lotus Flower sect disciple. Jingzhen would be personally in charge. Even if Chu Li appeared to rescue him, he would be able to stop him. This was the wishful thinking of the Church of Nine Hell. The killing intent in Chu Li's heart turned into a smile, as if he wasn't angry or angry at all. He said faintly, "Then let's see the power of your Book of Nine Hell." When he thought of this, he took a step forward and arrived in front of Jingzhen. He lightly threw out a punch. His movements were relaxed and slow like the wind. Jingzhen sneered. He was fearless, and endless killing intent surged. The black light on his body suddenly converged into his fist, and he met Chu Li's fist. Pop! A crisp sound rang out. It was as if a pebble had fallen into a deep well. Jing Zhen's body froze on the spot. Only his eyes were wide open, as if they were about to pop out. His eyes were quickly filled with blood. Chu Li looked at him calmly, as if he was looking at a dead man. Pop, 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 pop. Clear sounds came from Jing Zhen's body, as if 20 or so pebbles were thrown into a deep well one by one. He spat out an arrow of blood with a PU sound, followed by a second arrow of blood and a third arrow of blood. Every time a crisp sound came from his body, he would spit out an arrow of blood. With every sound, and every time he spat out an arrow of blood, Jing Zhen would become a little shorter. It was as if his body was made of sand and was being submerged. By the time 20 over sounds were heard, Jing Zhen had already fallen limply to the ground like a pile of mud. He did not have any bones or flesh. It was as if he was only left with a piece of skin and a head. Chu Li came in front of him and looked down at Jing Zhen, who was lying on the ground. Where's the power of the abyss? Why isn't it here? I can't be killed. Jing Zhen gritted his teeth. His eyes were blood red, and his expression was ferocious. His previous handsome appearance had completely disappeared. Chu Li shook his head and said, I'd like to see if you'll die today. As he spoke, his eyes flashed. Bang, 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 bang. Strange sounds came from Jing Zhen's body again. Then a black light flashed, and his body began to fill up. It was as if the black light had transformed into the power of his flesh and blood. Chu Li was surprised and looked at him in surprise. The abyssal tome was indeed mysterious. He had really borrowed the power of the abyss, and his body's recovery speed was beyond imagination. His giant spirit palm earlier had been sudden and intense. The power of the abyss could not react in time, and now its power was revealed. Huh! Jing Zhen laughed out loud and straightened his back like a pine tree. He felt his body quickly fill up, and his powerful power was quickly returning. This pain and excitement mixed together made him want to laugh out loud. His heroic spirit reached the clouds. It was as if there was nothing in the world that he feared and no one to be afraid of. He just had to do whatever he wanted, even if that person was Jing Ru. Chu Li shook his head and appeared in front of him in a flash. Then he lightly struck out with his palm again. Jing Zhen wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Pop, 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 pop. The sound of pebbles falling into the deep well was heard continuously again, but this time it did not stop. The black light on Jing Zhen's body flickered violently, as if it was contending with the sound of the pebbles. However, his body became shorter and shorter, and he looked the same as before. Ah! Jing Zhen roared hoarsely. He was extremely indignant. He could feel his body rapidly weakening, and the power of the abyss could not save him in time. Please remember this book's original domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. Chapter 4022. Chu Li furrowed his brows and stared at him. His body was rapidly being destroyed, but his spirit was still strong. This was extremely abnormal. Under normal circumstances, he should have fainted at this moment. His soul would have lost its function and could only passively dissipate. In the end, his body would be completely destroyed, and his soul would leave his body and enter the cycle of reincarnation. At that moment, Jing Zhen was different. Although his body was rapidly being destroyed at a speed visible to the naked eye, his mind was even more vigorous and full of energy. His expression was solemn as he thought of the heavenly demon. Could it be that Jing Zhen was also a reincarnated sky fiend? However, it was clear that he had not completely transformed into a sky demon. It was not easy to become a true sky demon. Back then, when he had fought with Meng Guanyuan for a while, he had even taken out his strongest azure, Cloud Divine Sword. Jingru, you deserve to die. Jing Zhen roared furiously. The black light became denser again, and the speed at which his body crumbled slowed down. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. The power of the abyss was indeed shocking. He took another step forward and threw a light punch. Plop, 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 plop. The sound of pebbles falling into the well rang out incessantly again. He spat out mouthful after mouthful of blood. With every plop sound, he spat out another mouthful of blood. In the blink of an eye, the flickering black light suddenly turned into a ball and enveloped Jingjin like a silkworm spinning a cocoon. Chu Li saw that the situation was not good, so he struck out with his palm again. However, the formless energy blocked the palm energy and could not penetrate it. The energy of the abyss of 9 underworlds was directly helping him to fight against the enemy. Chu Li's expression changed again, and he snorted. Initially, he did not want to use his ultimate move, but now, it seemed like he could not do anything to Jingjun, even if he did not use it. Chi 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 chi. Amidst the whistling sounds, the dense blackness instantly split into 4, as if lightning had appeared in the dark clouds. Jingjin's excitement could be seen under the 4 zigzags. His eyes shone brightly, and his face revealed a crazed expression. The power of the 9th netherworld abyss was indeed incomparably formidable. It was able to protect him completely, so why would he be afraid of Jingru? He would just blindly kill. When he thought of this, he shook his arms and was about to rush toward Chu Li. Unfortunately, he had just charged forward when his body stiffened and came to an abrupt stop. His eyes, which were originally bright like torches, dimmed and then quickly extinguished. Finally, the light disappeared and he slowly collapsed. The black light expanded and then shrunk. They burrowed into Jingjin's body in an attempt to save him. Chu Li could not help but praise the abyss of 9 underworlds. It was even more powerful than the Golden Pond. The Golden Pond could not resurrect the disciples of the Lotus sect from a distance. However, everything was futile. After the black light drilled into Jingjin's body, it shot out again, transforming into a black beam that charged into the sky. Chu Li shook his head. It was returning to its origin, but Jingjin's soul had already dissipated. Jingjin did have a Sky Fiend seed. Although he had yet to completely transform into a Sky Fiend, he was easier to deal with than Meng Guangyuan. But this was a bad omen. The 9 evil cult already had 2 demonic seeds. What about the other disciples? Would he also be implanted with a demonic seed and be able to transform into a heavenly demon? Transforming into a heavenly demon was extremely difficult, but once it succeeded, then that would be a disaster. With an undying body, even heavenly deities could only avoid its sharpness. The next moment, he disappeared. He realized that Jingxue was already sitting opposite Xian Qing. Senior brother. Jingxue opened her bright eyes. I'm going to guard this place. Chu Li shook his head. Jingxue said, after the tribulation of Empyrean deity, there will be another great tribulation. An even greater tribulation is about to arrive. Chu Li looked at Xian Qing beside him. Xian Qing scoffed. I didn't force Jingxue to stay. She was secretly shocked. Chu Li had only given her a glance, without even using any power, but it had already made her feel a sense of dread. This was due to her keen intuition, which was far sharper than that of her fellow disciples. Chu Li said, Junior sister, we Lotus Flower sect disciples don't need such protection. There's no need to tire ourselves like this. There's the golden pool. He thought about this and asked, Honorable Master, why can the abyss of 9 evil protect the disciples from afar, but can't the golden pool? Xian Qing frowned. You met the disciples of the 9 evil cult. Chu Li nodded. What did you do to them? Xian Qing asked. Chu Li said, killed them. They can't be resurrected. Xian Qing's expression was solemn. Chu Li nodded. They were born bad. Even after reincarnating, they will continue to do evil. Of course, they have to be eliminated. You? Xian Qing's expression completely darkened. Chu Li said, can't they be killed? Sigh. Xian Qing shook her head. They've already been killed. It's too late to say that. Chu Li nodded. Jingxue smiled. Honorable Master, is the Lotus Flower sect afraid of the abyss of 9 evil cult? Senior brother killed the disciples of the abyss of 9 evil cult before. She thought about when Jingjun rebelled against the Lotus Flower sect, and the protector of the abyss of 9 evil cult personally came to pick him up. In the end, The Lotus Flower sect left the matter unsettled, as if they were afraid of the abyss of nine evil cult. She was already confused at that time. Later, she forgot to ask because of many things. Xian Qing sighed. It's not that I'm afraid. I just don't want to fight with them. After all, we were from the same family. Jing Xue was shocked. Xian Qing said, the founder of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult was actually a disciple of the Lotus Flower sect. How was that possible? Jing Xue was shocked. The Abyss of Nine Evil Cult was one of the 5 sects in Tian'an South. However, the disciples were willful. They were both good and evil. It was hard to say. Moreover, the 9 Ghost Cult still had the 9 Underworld Abyss, which made her even more surprised. This is a secret. Xian Qing frowned, and it involves the dark secrets of the founders. So, I can't talk about it. Founder, we're already at this point. Just say what needs to be said. Chu Li said, I don't want to be confused and not know friend or foe. You. Xian Qing shook her head. Actually, the founder of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult was a disciple of the Lotus Flower sect. Later, because of a change of heart and a fortuitous encounter in the Abyss of Nine Evil, he founded the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult. Chu Li and Jing Xue were confused. Xian Qing said, the leader of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult is a woman. The two were shocked. Then, realization dawned on them. Xian Qing said, our Lotus Flower sect always feels that we owe the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult. Chu Li frowned. Is the founder of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult still alive? Xian Qing shook her head. She's no longer around. The current leader is her daughter. Chu Li smiled bitterly. She can't be the daughter of the founders of the Lotus Flower sect and the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult. Yes. Xian Qing nodded. She's the daughter of the previous leader of the Lotus Flower sect and the founder of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult. This is... Chu Li shook his head. Jing Xue's eyes flashed. Why did they turn against each other? We shouldn't discuss the matters of the founders. Xian Qing said, it's just a misunderstanding. Unfortunately, the founder of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult was too unyielding. She left without hesitation and wanted to commit suicide. In the end, she encountered the Abyss of Nine Evil and became the master of the Abyss. She founded the Abyss of Nine Evil. Later, when she realized it was a misunderstanding, the Abyss of Nine Evil was already founded. This is truly a freak combination of factors. Jing Xue was fascinated as she listened and glanced at Chu Li. Chu Li said, Founder, the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect are very tolerant, but the disciples of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult are different. They covet our secret Lotus technique and have a burning desire to kill. Xian Qing sighed. Chu Li said, can they restrain the martial arts of the Lotus Flower sect? Not exactly, but not far. Xian Qing nodded. It's just that this martial art is only taught to the leader of the Abyss of Nine Evil Cult. P.S. Update complete. Please remember the domain name of this book. Fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4023. This senior is also... Chu Li shook his head. He could not judge the founder of the Church of Nine Spirits. She was indeed a stunning woman. The Book of Nine Spirits was not ordinary and was probably passed down from the Abyss of Nine Spirits. So if we offend the Church of Nine Spirits, they will tolerate it. Xian Qing pondered. We think we tolerate them, and they think they tolerate us. Jing Xue nodded. When they can't tolerate it anymore, the church leader will make a move and embarrass the sect leader. There is nothing they could do about martial arts restraining each other. With the talent of the founder, the restraining method would definitely be effective. Xian Qing said, I'm afraid it will be worse. The two sects are originally from the same source, but they've been stumbling and being laughed at by others. The Creation sect may take advantage of this. What does this have to do with the Creation sect? Jing Xue asked. Xian Qing shook his head. The Creation sect has always wanted to be number one in Tian'an. They've always kept a low profile and are reserved, but they're actually very ambitious. Jing Xue nodded. Chu Li's expression changed. He thought of Zhou Qinlan from the Creation sect. Xian Qing said, the two sects have hidden fires. Once they start fighting, they won't be able to control it. The creation sect and even the royal sect will benefit. Chu Li said, the royal sect won't. They've lost their spirit and won't want to dominate Tian'an anytime soon. Xian Qing shook his head. Times change, and people change too. That might not be the case. That's true. Chu Li agreed helplessly. The human heart is the most fickle. Sometimes it is in the east, sometimes it is in the west. It can change several times in a day. Jing Xue said, Honorable Master, what should we do? Are we just going to let the Church of Nine Spirits bully us and not fight back? Of course not. Xian Qing scoffed. Even if they're disciples of the same sect, they have to fight if they offend us. But we have to be careful. Jing Xue said, we have to be careful. The Church of Nine Spirits is ruthless. If it wasn't for Senior Brother, they would have killed Master Suning. Xian Qing stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. Chu Li said, Honorable Master, I cultivate the martial arts of the Lotus sect, but it's not all. If the Church of Nine Spirits comes, just leave it to me. There's no need for the sect leader to do anything. Oh, that's true. Xian Qing nodded. She thought of all of Chu Li's fortuitous encounters. Although he used the martial arts of the Lotus Flower sect as the foundation, he also had other mystical arts to help him. Back then, in order to resist, he even practiced the mystical art of the heavenly deity. Senior Brother. Jing Xue suddenly shouted. A jade tag flew from the wall and floated towards Chu Li. Just as Chu Li reached out to take it and was about to leave, another jade tag flew into his hand. He frowned but caught it as well. Just as he was about to leave, 2 more jade tokens flew over. 2 more followed. A total of 6 jade tokens fell into his hands. Jing Xue said, Senior Brother, quick! Chu Li nodded and disappeared the next moment. Xian Qing's expression was solemn as he stared at Jing Xue. What happened? Jing Xue shook her head gently and said, I don't know what's going on. Suddenly, there's danger. It's as though someone is deliberately attacking at the same time. Do they know Senior Brother's abilities? Very likely. Xian Qing said slowly. Moreover, it is very likely to be the 9 evil cult. The 9 evil cult and our sect are intertwined. It is very difficult to differentiate them. Jing Xue frowned slightly. She had been using the mind illumination scripture. She felt as though there were dark clouds pressing down on them, as though a great calamity was coming. She suddenly raised her hand, and 2 jade tokens flew up again. This time, there was no way for Chu Li to make a move. I'll go. Xian Qing shouted in a low voice. Jing Xue tossed the 2 jade tokens to Xian Qing. After Xian Qing caught the jade tokens, her figure flashed and disappeared. She had used the void diversion technique. Void diversion consumed the most inner energy and was not fast enough. She could not move too far in one go. It was incomparable to Chu Li's god's limbs. However, at this critical moment, she could not care so much. After all, she could not leave someone to die. Jing Xue quietly stayed in the basilica and looked at the jade tokens hanging on the wall. She frowned and pondered. Who was this? Could it really be the 9 evil cult? What were they trying to do? Could it be a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain? Thinking about this, she suddenly leaped out of the basilica. Supported by the lotus seat, she slowly went up and looked down at the entire lotus flower sect. She immediately realized something was wrong. The great sect protecting formation seemed to be shaking. Someone was invading. However, the great sect protecting formation did not retaliate and only vibrated passively. If it was not for the special attention, they would not notice this vibration. Who is it? She shouted. The clear shout traveled far and resounded throughout the entire Lotus Flower sect. The disciples of the Lotus Flower sect who were cultivating knew it was for the moment they heard this voice. Su Xian was supported by the Lotus Flower sect to her side. What's going on? Su Xian asked. Jing Xue said, Master's junior aunt, someone is trying to break into the formation. Su Xian frowned and said, It shouldn't be, right? She did not notice anything strange. Then, she carefully sensed and shook her head lightly. She still did not feel anything strange. Jingxue pointed to the northeast and shouted, "Over there!" Su Xian was puzzled and looked at her. However, when she thought of Jingshue's sharp senses and the fact that she could cultivate the mind illumination, she believed her. The lotus seat suddenly sped up and transformed into a beam of flowing light. She had already rushed out and quickly arrived at the forest in the northeast. "Who are you?" she shouted at the 6 people in front of her. The 6 people had already entered the great formation, but she recognized them. Also, the auras of the 6 people were not disciples of the Lotus Flower sect. They had clearly intruded into the great formation and had come in without a sound. They did not come with good intentions. "Where is the team of protectors?" she shouted. "Someone is intruding." 6 middle-aged men appeared at her side. Looking at the 6 people in front of them, their expressions were solemn, and they charged forward without a word. The 6 people in front of them also did not say a word and pulled out the long blades of their waists. 6 streaks of blade light flashed, and then the 6 men in the team of protectors fell to the ground, their bodies already cut in half. One cut in half. The people in the team of protectors did not even have the time to activate the lotus wheel before they were cut in half and died immediately. Su Xian's bright eyes flashed. She was not in a hurry to act. She swept a glance at the corpses on the ground and seemed to be in thought. According to the cultivation of these disciples and their powerful vitality, even if they were cut in half, they would not die immediately and would be able to persist for a while. Being in the Lotus Flower sect, the disciples were full of confidence. As long as they persisted for a bit and were brought to the golden pool, they would quickly recover. But now, these 6 senior brothers from the team of protectors did not have the chance to recover and were directly reincarnated, slightly reducing the strength of the Lotus Flower sect. "Team of protectors," she shouted, "stand down." The 8 middle-aged men that broke through the air paused for a moment and then returned to the void. The 6 men's faces were gloomy and expressionless. Su Xian shouted, "Cowards, take off your masks." The 6 men stepped forward and 6 streaks of light came down on her head. Su Xian felt that something was wrong and wanted to retreat, but she found that she could not move. She could only watch as the blade light approached. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and the scenery in front of Su Xian changed. The next moment, she found that she was already 100 feet away. 6 men stood with blades, their bodies tensed and full of vigilance. She turned to look at Chu Li and said in a low voice, "Why did you come back?" Chu Li said, "These guys are from the Church of 9 Spirits." "Why does the Church of 9 Spirits need to hide?" Su Xian was puzzled. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version, Chapter 4024. Chu Li frowned. They're plotting something big. The next moment, he had already disappeared. Su Xian was startled, and the 6 men were also surprised. They held their blades and took a step back, shortening the distance between them and forming a defensive stance. After a dozen breaths, they still didn't dare to be careless. They didn't dare to move recklessly. Their hearts were tense, and they were even more careful. Su Xian pursed his lips and smiled. She suddenly understood that Chu Li had indeed left. Since he had encountered too many dangers at the same time, he might have sensed that she was in danger, so he had instantly rushed over and then rushed back. Another dozen breaths passed. The 6 masked men seemed to have reacted. They took 2 steps forward, and their auras surged violently like raging waves. Su Xian frowned again. She could feel the cold, killing intent and tyrannical power. She was like a small boat that was almost drowned by them. "Uncle Master." Jing Shui floated over. As she approached, Su Xian sighed in relief. Jing Shui's presence was as calm as the waves, but it easily dispersed their surging presence and dissipated the wave-like pressure. Su Xian turned her head to look at Jing Shui with mixed emotions. Her status in the Lotus Flower sect was special, and her cultivation was hidden. Only the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect knew a little about it, and the outside world did not know. But from the reactions of the 6 people, she understood that they were here to kill her, and the law protectors were just collateral damage. The cultivation of these 6 people was profound, and their saber techniques were sharp and ruthless. She was no match for them, and it was very likely that she would become a dead soul with a single saber strike. She might not even be able to become a dead soul. After Jing Shui arrived, their threat disappeared. It was as if 6 vicious wolves had met tiger. Although they were still terrifying, their tails were already tucked between their legs, and their demeanor was very obedient. Jing Shui glanced at the 6 people and said indifferently, "They only sent 6 fellows this time? Strange." Su Xian frowned and pondered. She had a feeling that these 6 people were coming for her. But why were they coming for her? Although his status in the sect was special, and he would become the next sect leader, it would take a long time. No one knew what would happen. Right now, the sect master's lifespan was less than 5,000 years. There were too many things that could happen in the remaining 5,000 years, so there was no need to get rid of him now. Other than this, she couldn't think of any other reason. She rarely appeared outside the sect, and even if she did, she would use another identity. That was why he was nameless and had no enemies. Then why did he want to kill him? Jing Shui shook her head. The 9 Ghost cult is getting more and more out of hand. Do they really think that we will only take a beating and not take the initiative to attack? The 6 of them remained silent. They placed their hands on their blades and did not say a word. Their aura was condensed and not released, as if they were accumulating their strength in preparation for a fatal blow. Jing Shui's spiritual senses were sharp, and she discovered their intentions. She shook her head and looked at the void. The next moment, Chu Li appeared in the void. He strode in front of the 2 women, glanced at the 6 people who were accumulating power, and said lightly, "Martial Ant, are you dead or alive?" Not waiting for Su Xian to speak, he continued, "A total of 10 peak experts from the 9 evil cult were arranged to kill our Lotus Flower School disciples. If I was late, they would have definitely succeeded. Kill him, but don't scatter his soul," Su Xian said solemnly. Chu Li nodded lightly. His eyes suddenly flashed. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. The 6 of them were sent flying. While they were in the air, the masks on their faces had already shattered, revealing sinister faces that looked like malicious spirits. "Eh!" Su Xian's bright eyes flickered as she exclaimed in surprise. Chu Li and Jing Shui looked at her. Su Xian said, "I know who they are. They are blade ghosts." Bang, 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 bang. The 6 of them landed on the empty ground in front of the forest. They were motionless, already dead. Chu Li directly used the god-punishing Thunder Sword. Right now, he could kill people with the god-punishing Thunder Sword. He did not need the Azure Cloud Divine Sword. There was no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. What are blade ghosts? Jing Shui frowned and said, "I don't think I've heard of them. They are sinners from the 9 evil cult." Su Xian shook her head lightly and said, "But there are always some disciples with bad temperaments. They are punished repeatedly, and they do not change." Jing Shui said, "So you made them blade ghosts, becoming one with the blade, abandoning their own souls, and using the blade as their master." Su Xian shook her head and said, "By doing so, they can exchange for great power, but they lose their souls and ability to act independently. They become a blade. The blade is him, and he is the blade," Jing Shui said. "This is an extremely brilliant blade technique, right? It's a blade technique. It's said to be passed down from the abyss." Su Xian sighed and said, "It's not orthodox. It's vicious and too extreme. It doesn't matter if it's extreme or not, as long as it's powerful." Jing Shui frowned and said, "There are 100 blade ghosts from the 9 evil cult. We are no match for them." There were 6 of them, but the protectors were already the top masters of the Lotus sect. Yet, they could not block one of their blades. It was clear how powerful it was. As for their ending, it was normal for sinners to atone for their sins with death. How could there be so many? Su Xian laughed. "If that's the case, for the 5 sects in Tianan South will be restless." Chu Li said, "This blade ghost refinement technique has a great drawback." "What drawback?" the 2 girls asked. Chu Li said, "Only attacking and not defending. It's either you or I die. It's hard to live long, and you can easily die. It's okay. They are one with the blade. As long as the blade is there, they will not die. After resurrecting from the abyss, their blade will directly imbue them with cultivation. Their blade is hard to destroy, just like our lotus wheel. Jingxue asked. Su Xian nodded lightly. That's troublesome. It's endless. Jingxue frowned and looked at Chu Li. Chu Li said, we have to clarify this with the sect leader in case we get into trouble. Jingxue scoffed. They want to kill Masters Junior Su Xian. In my opinion, don't be merciful and just kill them. Killing them is enough. Su Xian nodded lightly. There's no need for their souls to disperse. The Lotus sect had the ability to disperse their opponent's souls, but the Church of Nine Spirits could too. With the Book of Nine Spirits, they could also disperse the souls of the Lotus sect disciples so that they could not be reborn. The two sects were wary of each other. It was better to leave some leeway. Jingxue said, Masters Junior, these blade ghosts are scourges. I see that they are violent and easily go to extremes. It's too dangerous. I'll ask the sect leader. Wait here, Su Xian said. The lotus seat carried her away in spirals. Jingxue looked at Chu Li. They're all saved? And Master Senior? Everything is fine, Chu Li said. Jingxue sighed in relief. The Church of Nine Spirits is getting serious. Are they really going to fight? Chu Li was silent. Based on what he sensed, the Church of Nine Spirits was already prepared to launch a thunderous attack. As for why they killed Su Xian first, they must have other intentions. Jingxue said, one wave comes after another. Without an enlightened master, humans can't rest either. It's really. She shook her head lightly and did not know what to say. Chu Li smiled. Humans are always looking for trouble. Even if they don't have trouble, they will find trouble. Let nature take its course. Jingxue suddenly slapped out with her palm. A gentle light fell and enveloped a long blade. The blade did not move. Jingxue took a step forward but stopped. She felt a strong murderous intent. If she took another step, she would face a fatal blow. She felt that the blade had come to life. It was like a person staring at her, like a tiger watching its prey, ready to attack at any time. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4025. Chu Li flicked his finger. Ding! The long blade rang. It suddenly shot out a strange black light, as if it was absorbing the light around it, making it brighter. The black light and the brightness were completely different. When combined, they were imposing and intimidating, frightening Jingxue's restless thoughts. She could feel how terrifying the black light was. Touching it could cost her life. She had to avoid it carefully. Chu Li stared at the black light in amazement. He recognized the origin of the black light at a glance. Nine Abyss. The power of Nine Abyss condensed into such black light. Looking at the brightness of the black light, it was several times brighter than the light that protected Jingxun. For a blade to emit such a light, it was no different from Nine Abyss supporting it. That was why it would not be destroyed. If it was alive, with the deep support of Nine Abyss, the people of this world might not be able to damage it. Chu Li smiled. Senior brother, can you destroy these blades? Jingxue scoffed. If we can't destroy the souls of the Church of Nine Abyss disciples, it shouldn't be a problem to destroy their blades, right? Chu Li smiled. The Church of Nine Abyss may value these blades more. That's what I want. Jingxue grinned. We can control ourselves and make them feel sorry for us. They won't dare to act recklessly again. Chu Li said, let's try. He suddenly turned to look. Su Xian fluttered over and shook her head helplessly when she came near. Still not killing in this situation? Jingxue said unhappily. What is the sect leader worried about? She scoffed again. Is he afraid we can't deal with the Church of Nine Abyss? The sect leader has his own thoughts, Su Xian said. Just do it. Jingru, what are you going to do? Chu Li smiled. Destroy these blades. They can't be destroyed. They aren't from this world. Su Xian shook her head. They're exotic metals. They can't be destroyed. Chu Li suddenly stepped in front of Blade. The blade shot over. The black light expanded and was about to pierce his chest. Chu Li punched it lightly. Ding! With a clear ring, the long blade stopped and trembled as if it was trying to break free from some kind of force. Chuli narrowed his eyes and activated the azure cloud divine sword. Chi! A light whistling sound came from the sword. Su Xin and Jingshua's vision suddenly turned black, and they nearly fainted. Then, they were jolted awake by a clear whistle. Chuli used draconic chant to calm them down. When he looked at the saber again, it had already fallen to the ground, broken into pieces. This! Su Xin looked at Chu Li in disbelief, then looked at the fragments on the ground. She was about to walk over, but stopped abruptly. The other 5 sabers slowly floated up and floated above the broken saber, as if to protect its remains. Chuli scoffed as a strange light flashed in his eyes. The 5 sabers immediately flickered with black light and flashed crazily. They charged toward Chu Li and turned into 5 black rays. Chu Li did not dodge. He stared at them quietly. Su Xin and Jingxue were shocked and wanted to stop him. However, the 5 blades stopped 3 feet in front of Chu Li. They trembled violently and let out a buzzing sound. The sound was soft, but it was enough to shake one's soul. The 2 women heaved a sigh of relief and stared at him intently. They had no idea how the saber had been destroyed. This time, they had to see it clearly. Ding, 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 ding. With 5 clear sounds, the 5 sabers suddenly cracked. The cracks grew bigger and bigger until they finally fell to the ground and turned into 5 broken sabers. The 2 women stared at them, but were confused. Chu Li sighed and smiled in satisfaction. Just as he expected, these 6 sabers had souls and were full of spirituality. They were also demon seeds that could not be destroyed. The sabers and demon seeds had merged into one. The demon seeds had collapsed and died. Although the material of the sabers was extraterrestrial rare metal and unparalleled sturdiness, they still shattered. Good. Jingxue clapped and smiled. This is great. She turned to look at Su Xin and smiled. Masters Jr., I'll make a trip for you and hand these 6 sabers to the Church of 9 Ghosts. Let's see what they look like. The Church of 9 Ghosts is not to be underestimated. Su Xin pursed her lips and smiled. She felt great, too. The sect leader had ordered her to be merciful. She would do as she was told, but she felt uncomfortable. They almost killed her. She could only kill them once and send them back to life. They would still be a scourge in the future. However, it was different now. There were only 9 ghost sabers. Now that 6 of them were destroyed, the remaining 3 were insignificant. Of course, if he could destroy the other 3 as well, then that would be truly satisfying. Chu Li said, I'll go. This. Su Xin smiled and shook her head. The sect leader didn't say, why don't you go? Be more polite and avoid fighting if you can. Chu Li smiled. Understood. If he could avoid fighting, he would. If he could not avoid fighting, he would fight. He could hear the hidden meaning in Su Xion's words. Go then. Come back quickly, so that everyone won't worry about you, Su Xion said. Chu Li raised his hand, and the broken pieces of the sabers began to fly up. Then, they pieced back together and returned to the shape of the saber. At first glance, it seemed like a complete saber. However, there were cracks on the blade. One would have thought it was specially made like this. They were bound by an invisible force and could not disperse to reform into a saber. Wait, Su Xian said. The lotus seat carried her away quickly. In the blink of an eye, she came back with a box in her hand. When she opened it, it could be used to store the sabers. 6 sabers flew into the box. Su Xian closed it and passed it to Chu Li with a smile. Be careful. Be wary of their schemes. Chu Li nodded. Masters Jr., you still have to be careful. If the first move doesn't work, they'll use the second. I suspect. His eyes quickly swept across the surroundings. Su Xian nodded. I understand. They all knew that there must be spies from the Church of 9 Ghosts in the sect. Chu Li looked at Jingxue. Jingxue smiled. Don't worry. I'll be by your side. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared at the Church of 9 Ghosts' main altar. He immediately broke through the formation and arrived at the vast martial arts field. In front of a basilica halfway up the mountain was a huge martial arts field. The martial arts field was very lively. People were either practicing alone or sparring with each other. When Chu Li stood on the martial arts field, no one even bothered with him. They were busy with their own things. After a while, Chu Li coughed. Jingru of the Lotus Sect greets Chief Tan. His voice suppressed all the sounds in the martial arts field. Even all the sounds in the Church of Nine Ghost rang clearly in everyone's mind. Even those who were cultivating in seclusion were awakened. Chu Li smiled as he looked at everyone in the martial arts field who was silent. They widened their eyes and focused on him. Their gazes were different. Some were probing, some were hostile, and some were inexplicable. Chu Li held the saber case in one hand and the other behind his back. He smiled and nodded at everyone. He said slowly, "Chief Tan, I'll have to trouble you to meet me. Come up." A clear voice rang out and spread to every disciple's ears. A lotus seat floated under Chu Li's feet and slowly lifted him into the air. Then he moved horizontally to the basilica that could be vaguely seen in the distance. The basilica was very far from here. Everyone's gazes turned hostile. The Lotus Sect dared to come here to flaunt their strength. This damn guy. They all felt that Chu Li was repulsive. They all wanted to teach him a lesson or even kill him. Couldn't Jin Shi be resurrected? Without his cultivation, let's see if he could still be so arrogant. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. Chapter 4026. Chu Li drifted away, but the great circle mystical sky mirror kept observing this side and saw what they were thinking. Through their thoughts, they knew that these Church of Nine evil disciples did not have any murderous intent towards the Lotus Flower Sect disciples. They were just indignant and displeased. They did not want to completely eliminate the Lotus Flower Sect disciples. They only wanted to kill them and force them to reincarnate so that they could cripple their cultivation and cultivate again. He drifted to the front of another basilica. A middle-aged woman was already standing outside the basilica. She had slender eyebrows and a noble bearing, but there was a hint of worry between her brows. Chu Li glanced at her and found that she was unfathomable. Moreover, there was an endless power behind her. It was obviously the power of the abyss of nine spirits. He closed fists, saluted, and smiled. Jinru from the Lotus Flower Sect greets Leader Tan. Tan Jingya glanced at him, and her gaze fell on the blade case. She said softly, "What did you bring?" Chu Li smiled. "The ghost blade of your church." Tan Jingya did not look like a leader of a church. She was elegant and charming. She spoke softly like a lady from a wealthy family. Moreover, there was a hint of worry between her brows, which made people feel pity for her. How could such a woman suppress the heroes of the Church of Nine Evil? She must have extraordinary methods and cultivation, or else those male disciples would never submit. Tan Jingya frowned and stared at the blade case. She nodded slowly. "Take it out and let me see." Chu Li said, "Leader Tan, aren't you going to ask why the ghost blade is in my hands?" He suddenly turned around and glanced at the void behind him. He smiled and said, "I think it's better to forget about this method." After he finished speaking, there was no movement. Chu Li shook his head and looked at Tan Jingya. "Leader Tan, please forgive me for offending you." He flicked his finger. Swoosh! With a light whistle, a blood arrow suddenly appeared in the void. Then, an elder appeared. The elder's face was pale. He held his chest and stared at Chu Li as if he had seen a ghost. Blood kept gushing out from his chest. The blood flowed down his arm and dripped onto the white jade in front of the basilica. Chu Li smiled. "These little tricks will only make people laugh. Let's see if you have the right to speak to me." Tan Jingya smiled lightly and said elegantly, "He is indeed an outstanding talent. The Lotus Flower Sect's Jinru can be said to be in the limelight for a time." Chu Li smiled. "It's just an empty reputation. It's not worth mentioning. Let's get down to business. Bishop Tan, do you know why the ghost blade fell into my hands?" "I don't know." Tan Jingya smiled. "But I still have to thank you for sending it back." Chu Li said, "If I say that the ghost blade has been destroyed, I wonder if the bishop will still thank me." Puffed. Tan Jingya chuckled. She covered her red lips and couldn't help but smile. Chu Li looked at her with a smile and slowly opened a sheath. 6 blades were lying in the sheath, perfectly intact. Tanjing Ya's smile froze. Her jade-like face was instantly covered with a layer of frost. Her eyes narrowed and suddenly became long and narrow, completely different from her previous phoenix eyes. The look in Zhang Xian's eyes changed, and his entire demeanor changed. It was as if he had become a completely different person. He was dignified and solemn, and no one dared to look at him directly. Her eyesight was outstanding, and she immediately saw the abnormality of the ghost blade. Not to mention that its essence, spirit, and spirit were all gone. It was just an empty shell with cracks on it. Although the ghost blades were still together, based on their material, it was impossible to cause such cracks in the current world. Even a lotus wheel could not do it. Chuli smiled. This is the ghost blade, right? Please accept it. Jinru, I've underestimated the lotus sect. Tanjing Ya's voice was calm, but there was not a trace of warmth. It was cold and emotionless. Chuli smiled. Likewise, we've also underestimated the Church of 9 Spirits. Who did this? Tanjing Ya pointed at the 6 ghost blades. Chuli pointed at himself. I'm just a nobody. Good, good. Tanjing Ya said. You live up to your reputation. As expected of the Lotus Sect's Jinru. Chuli smiled. Bishop, you flatter me. Come out. Tanjing Ya shouted. The void split open, and 3 ghost blades appeared, followed by 3 middle-aged men. They did not wear masks on their faces, and their looks were extraordinary. You guys have a taste of the Lotus Sect's Jinru skills. Tanjing Ya said. Yes. The 3 of them lowered their heads and answered. When they raised their heads, 3 streaks of light flashed and instantly arrived in front of Chuli. Chuli's eyes narrowed slightly and flashed. Bang, 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 bang. Continuous muffled sounds came from their bodies. At the same time, black light gushed out from the ghost blades and instantly enveloped the people wielding the blades. The black light flashed violently, but it could not stop the muffled sounds coming from the 3 people's bodies, as if a heavy hammer was hitting them. Suddenly, a black light broke through the air and entered the 3 people's bodies, completely enveloping them like a cocoon. However, at this time, there were still continuous muffled sounds. Chuli held back a cold smile and looked at the 3 people indifferently. Tanjing Ya's expression was solemn, and the elder who was injured earlier had already quietly retreated. Ding, ding, ding. A clear sound followed, and then the black light suddenly dissipated, revealing 3 broken blades and 3 corpses. Good, good. Tanjing Ya's expression became more and more unpleasant, and she looked cold. Chuli smiled and said, I couldn't hold back. Please forgive me, Bishop. Jinru, does your leader know that you're so savage? Tanjing Ya asked coldly. Chuli shook his head. No, the leader doesn't know that I'm here. Aren't you afraid of being scolded by your leader? Tanjing Ya tilted her head and asked. She did this with a playful intention. Chuli smiled and said, The leader sent people to kill our disciples, so I came to greet him. The leader won't be offended, right? Are you expecting us to swallow our anger and not say or do anything? Good, very good. Tanjing Ya smiled and said, Very good. Chuli smiled and said, Leader, I didn't do anything, did I? I only destroyed 3 blades, but I didn't expect these 3 people to die as well. It's such a pity. Don't you know that the ghost blade is one with the person? Tanjing Ya smiled and asked, You killed them on purpose, right? Chuli shook his head and said, I didn't do it on purpose. The leader has wronged me. Ha! Tanjing Ya chuckled and said, Jinru, do you think you can walk out of the Church of Evil today? Chuli nodded and said, I can. It depends on your ability. Tanjing Ya said, If you can walk out of the Church of Evil, then I will cease all activities and not look for trouble with your Lotus Flower sect. Then it's a deal. Chuli smiled and said. Tanjing Ya's figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the ghost blade and the 3 corpses on the ground also disappeared. The entire world suddenly changed, and the universe was turned upside down. Chuli smiled, and the next moment, the scene before him changed again. He was still in the original position. The ghost blade and the 3 corpses were still there, and Tanjing Ya was also in the same place, just quietly looking at him. Chu Li smiled and closed fist saluted. Leader, the formation is ineffective against me. No wonder you can break through the church's protective formation. Tan Jingya said, This is my fault for underestimating you. Let's continue. She flashed and disappeared on the spot. The next moment, the sky was covered by dark clouds. Chu Li looked up with a solemn expression. These dark clouds were different from normal dark clouds. They were the power of the abyss of 9 spirits. Chu Li frowned and stared at them. Just like when he faced the enemy in the golden pool, he could borrow the power of the golden pool. That was a terrifying power, and it was the same here. The power of the abyss of 9 spirits could reverse life and death, so it was naturally extremely tyrannical. He did not dare to say that he could win, but he was already prepared to run at any time if he could not win. Tan Jingya's voice sounded, It's a pity that your talent is so shocking. Chu Li smiled and said, Leader, the Lotus Flower sect and the Church of Evil are originally one. Why do you have to make a big fuss and let others laugh at you? Like the Creation sect and the Royal sect, they are just watching the show, waiting to hit you when you're down. I don't need you to teach me what to do. Tan Jingya chuckled. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 4027. Chu Li raised his head and stared at the dark clouds. They were getting thicker and thicker, forming a mountain range that stacked on top of each other. The heavy atmosphere shrouded the surroundings. Chu Li felt the heavy pressure as if he was going to be swallowed or suffocated to death at any time. He judged that it was best to escape at this time. Otherwise, he might not be able to withstand it, even if it accumulated the greatest power. He cultivated the Azure Cloud Divine Sword, but he was not invincible. He could restrain the heavenly demon, but he might not be able to restrain other mystical beings. The abyss was a mysterious force. Chu Li continued to speak to distract Tan Jingya. It's not a big deal that the Church of 9 Spirits wants the secret Lotus technique. Hell, little fella, you talk big. Tan Jingya laughed. Chu Li said, I heard that the church leader has a martial art that specifically restrains our Lotus sect's martial art. If we can exchange it with the secret Lotus technique, I believe the sect leader will agree. You're not your sect leader. Tan Jingya said, The secret Lotus technique is much more important than the martial art that restrains the Lotus sect's martial art. Your sect leader won't exchange it. Chu Li laughed. You didn't mention it to our sect leader, right? How do you know he won't exchange it? What do you mean? The frost on Tan Jingya's face disappeared without a trace. She regained her calmness and scoffed. This is your sect leader's idea? Chu Li shook his head. I can't decide for the sect leader. However, the 2 sects are originally from the same source. Why must they fight over it? Why can't they unite and suppress the other 3 sects together? I almost got fooled by you. Tan Jingya sneered. The grudges between the 2 sects were hard to explain. It was impossible for them to join forces. Chu Li shook his head disapprovingly. Tan Jingya scoffed softly. Suddenly, the dark clouds became thicker. Chu Li felt the increasing pressure. He knew that if he did not leave now, he might not be able to. His figure flashed and was about to disappear, but he found that he could not move. The surrounding void was already filled with energy and could not be broken. I know you have God's limbs. Tan Jingya smiled sweetly. Don't you think of a way to restrain it? Chu Li frowned. Leader, you have informants in our Lotus sect. I really don't understand. What's there not to understand? Tan Jingya said with a smile. Which sect doesn't have some traitors? Chu Li asked, Didn't they tell you that I'm not afraid of formations? He had already executed the Davis shedding art. His body suddenly became light, and the huge power around him was no longer obstructed. He took a step and arrived before Tan Jingya. Tan Jingya was not flustered at all. She nodded lightly. You do have amazing skills. That's why you dare to come here and act presumptuously. Chu Li said, There's still something I don't understand. Tell me about it. Tan Jingya smiled. The 2 of them were not angry at all. Chu Li asked, Why did you kill Masters Junior Su Xian? Don't you know? Tan Jingya chuckled and shook her head. It seems that your position in the sect is very ordinary. It doesn't match your martial arts. Chu Li smiled. I've risen too quickly. so the sect hasn't had the time to adjust. You don't have to worry about this, Bishop. Let's talk about Masters Junior Su Xian instead. Then there's no harm in telling you. Tanjing said, if it's someone else, there's no point in killing them. They won't be able to inherit the secret lotus technique. Su Xian is different. If you kill her, you can get the lotus wheel and the secret lotus technique. Chuli asked, why is that? Of course, because the lotus wheel is different. Tanjing said, even if your martial arts are peerless, it's impossible for you to become the next sect leader of the lotus sect. However, if I kill Su Xian, I'll be helping you. Huh? Do you think that I want to be the sect leader? Chuli laughed. Tanjing looked at him indifferently. Who doesn't want to be a sect leader? Gather thousands of forces in one body, decide the world's general trend, and fight against the heavens. Chuli said, although I want to fight against the heavens, I don't want it to be too troublesome. As a sect disciple, there are trivial matters, but the sect leader doesn't. You can focus on cultivation, Tanjing said. Your knowledge is shallow. It's really funny. Chuli shook his head and said, forget it. I'm not suitable to be the sect leader. I just want to be free and unrestrained. He was not tempted at all to be a sect leader. He knew how troublesome it was. It might seem like nothing, but the invisible pressure was always there. If one was ruthless enough, it would be fine. They could turn a blind eye to the pressure, but if they were not ruthless enough, they would be suppressed. Tanjing sighed softly. Sigh, what a pity. Chuli smiled. You don't have to waste your efforts, Bishop. I have no interest in the sect leader's position. Bishop, just give up. Masters Junior Su Xian will be fine. That's not necessarily true. Tanjing smiled. If you're trapped here, there are many ways to deal with Su Xian. For example, Chuli said. Tanjing said, I'll just use the same old trick. I'll just lure her out. The sect leader must understand now. Chuli shook his head. He won't let her out of the sect. Your sect leader is an old fool, Tanjing said. He doesn't care about such trivial matters. He's focused on cultivating the sun and moon lotus planting scripture. Unfortunately, he hasn't perfected it and was surpassed by a junior like you. Chuli said, Bishop, weren't you surpassed by Meng Guangyuan and Jingjin too? It's normal for disciples to surpass the sect leader. Then I'll take my leave. As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes flashed. TSS, TSS, TSS. A shrill sound echoed in the void. Then, 4 young men in black appeared. There was a lightning mark between their brows and blood was flowing out. Their faces were solemn as they stood in front of Tanjing. Tanjing was solemn. She did not expect the wind, cloud, thunder, and lightning envoys, the strongest in the sect, to be injured in an instant. Their ninth hell eye's mystical skill had been broken. Chuli shook his head. What's the point? As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at the 4 young men in black. Bam, 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 bam. The 4 of them flew out and spurted blood in the air. After they landed heavily on the ground, they turned over and stood up. Their eyes were lifeless. They no longer had the vigor they had before. Chuli looked at Tanjing. Bishop, I'm not here to kill today. I'm here to return the blade. Humph. Thank you very much. Tanjing clenched her teeth and said faintly, Please go ahead. Thank you, Bishop. Chuli smiled. Tanjing said, The next time you come to Ninth Hell Mountain, don't blame me for being ruthless. Chuli chuckled. You make it sound like I'm not ruthless this time. Goodbye. He disappeared in a flash. Tanjing stood there quietly. She did not move. Her face was calm, but her eyes were flickering. Bishop, the 4 of them stepped forward. They looked ashamed. Tanjing shook her head lightly. You can't be blamed. He's more difficult to deal with than I thought. Although she had overestimated him, she still underestimated him. She could not see his killing intent. In fact, it was boiling. He wanted to kill Chuli, but he did not manage to do so. If she continued to be entangled with him, he would attack her. She would lose even more miserably. The abilities of the wind, cloud, thunder, and lightning envoys could not be compared to Meng Guangyuan. However, when the 4 of them worked together, they were stronger than Meng Guangyuan. She was not confident. Even if she used the power of the 9th Hell Abyss, she might not be able to keep him here. Should we ask the Elder Ancestor for help? a young man asked softly. Chapter 4028. Tan Jingya glared at him. The young man lowered his head and said, "Bishop, this person is too powerful. Even enlightened masters don't give me this much pressure." "Lightning Bringer, you're not brave enough," Tan Jingya said. Lightning Bringer said, "Bishop, to be safe, we should ask the elder ancestor to get rid of this person, or else." He was worried that Chu Li would come again. If he were to sneak up on the sect leader and launch a sneak attack on him, they were not confident that they could protect the sect leader. He concluded that this time, that fellow must have peeked into the void to find a path so that it would be convenient for his next sneak attack. He was afraid when he thought about it. "Lightning Bringer, do you think the elder ancestor is easy to ask?" Tan Jingya shook her head. Another young man said, "Bishop, I think Lightning Bringer is right. We should ask the elder ancestor to do it. We're useless." The other two young men nodded and did not say much, but their attitude was clear. They needed to ask the elder ancestor. "We should strike first. When his killing intent rises again, it'll be unimaginable," Lightning Bringer said solemnly. They had personally experienced how terrifying Chu Li was. His gaze was a shocking sword technique that struck at their souls. There was no way to avoid it. He was merciful this time, or else. Tan Jingya waved her hand. "Don't mention it. Think of a way yourself." She frowned and pondered. The church protection formation had failed, and one of their strongest weapons was useless. The abyss was not as easy to use in front of him. Although he could not fight against the abyss, he could avoid it. This was a big problem. "Looks like we have to ask Jingxue to come over," Tan Jingya said softly. If they wanted to kill him, they had to stop him from escaping. Jingxue, whom he valued the most, was his fatal weakness, and they could capture her. "Bishop, please reconsider," Lightning Bringer said. He was anxious. Once he captured Jingxue, he would be forcing Jingru to kill. If he could not be captured, the Church of Abyss would never have a day of peace. "Yes, I know." Tan Jingya waved her hand and said lazily, "I won't make a move if I'm not confident." If she made a move, she would kill him in one strike. She could not act rashly. She only had one chance to deal with someone like Jingru, and she could not miss it. She thought for a moment and said, "Tell the rest to stop." "Yes, cult leader." Lightning Messenger and the other three heaved a sigh of relief. They were not afraid of being killed, but they knew that the difference in strength was too great. They would just die for nothing, just like Gui Dao. The Lotus Wheel of the Lotus Flower Sect and the Ghost Blade of the Nine Evil Cult were both indestructible objects. Even the gods couldn't do anything to them. For Jingru to be able to destroy Ghost Blade meant that she surpassed sky deities. How could such strength be so easy to deal with? When Chu Li returned to his courtyard, he found Su Xian and Jingxue there. Seeing him return, the two women heaved a sigh of relief and looked him up and down to see if he was injured. Chu Li smiled. "Master's junior sister, I only chatted with cult leader Tan for a while. I didn't do anything." "You've already barged into the main altar, yet you're not going to make a move?" Su Xian smiled and shook her head. Chu Li said, "She wants to kill you for the Lotus Chakram. If she kills you, Master's Junior, she will be able to obtain the Lotus Chakram." Su Xian frowned and gently nodded. Jingxue was deep in thought. Even if an ordinary Lotus Flower Sect disciple was killed, the Lotus Chakram would automatically return to the Lotus Flower Sect. Outsiders could not obtain it. The Lotus Chakram was made of exotic metal. It contained spirituality. No one could stop it from returning, so it was even more impossible to obtain the secret Lotus technique. Why was Master's Su Xian's Lotus Chakram different? Su Xian said, "There's no harm in telling you, but don't tell anyone." Chu Li smiled. "Master's Junior, you're the next sect leader, so the Lotus Chakram has other uses. It doesn't need to recognize a master to inherit the secret Lotus technique." "Yes." Su Xian nodded. "Then Master's Junior must not go out," Jingxue said hurriedly. "Yes," Su Xian said helplessly. "It's really boring. What does cult leader Tan want?" "The secret Lotus technique," Chu Li pondered. "From the looks of it, it's just for the secret Lotus technique. But why does she want it?" That's also obvious. Another Xing, Jingxue said. Chu nodded. The Church of Abysmal's goal was to dominate Tianan. Once they had the secret lotus technique, the Book of Abysmal would be like adding wings to a tiger, and their strength would increase greatly. She should be well-behaved now, right? Jingxue said. Looks like I can't go out either, lest I drag you down. She quickly thought that if the Church of Abysmal wanted to kill Su Xin, they had to kill Chu Li first. Otherwise, the Church of Abysmal would not be able to withstand the revenge. And now, Chu Li's weakness was herself. If she was the Church of Abysmal's leader, she would first capture her, restrain Chu Li, and then eliminate him. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. With their abilities, it's impossible to capture you, junior sister. The Church of Abysmal is still very powerful. Jingxue frowned. Overall, they're better than our Lotus Chakram. She looked at Su Xin. Su Xin said, these years, they've been working hard and training hard. To outsiders, they seem to be silent and declining, but we know that their strength has increased greatly. Jingru, don't provoke them anymore. If they dare to act recklessly again, the sect leader has nothing to say and will not tolerate it. Yes, Chu Li nodded. The two returned to Chu Li's courtyard. Junior sister, let's make a plan, Chu Li said. Jingshue's eyes brightened. She smiled. What plan? Plot against the Church of Abysmal, Chu Li said. To teach them a lesson. Tell me. Jingshue's eyes brightened. Chu Li said, I'll increase your strength again, and you'll keep quiet. Only the two of us will know. Jingxue pursed her lips and smiled. Plot against them? Chu Li smiled and nodded. Interesting. Jingxue said, all right, then let's play once. 6 heaven lotuses suddenly appeared in the sky. They were like 6 white clouds drifting in the void. At first glance, they were not eye-catching. As the heaven lotus god's descent improved, its momentum was greatly reduced. If one wanted to make a move, there would be an earth-shattering movement. If one wanted to be silent, there would be no sound. No one paid attention to the white clouds in the sky. Even if they stared at the sky, they would only see the boundless blue sky. Very few paid attention to the changes in the white clouds. Even if they saw the 6 lotuses, they would only feel curious. They would not think of anything else. The light on Chu Li's body suddenly condensed. A milky white brilliance overflowed as though it was surging out from the ground. It quickly covered Chu Li, followed by Jingxue. Jingxue felt a surge of power pouring down. Her lotus planting scripture that had already been perfected improved again. Originally, it could not be improved, but at this moment, she had a flash of inspiration. A strange heart technique naturally flashed in her mind. She trusted her spirit sense. She activated it according to the heart technique. An eye vaguely appeared in the void 30 feet above her head. This eye only had shape. It was not clear and vivid enough. It was obvious at a glance that it was fake. The ball-sized eye slowly opened and light appeared. Jingxue only felt that she saw a blurry light. When she focused, it was a battle. She saw herself, Chu Li, and Su Xin surrounded by more than 100 people. Dark clouds covered their heads. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4029. The scene in front of her seemed to be happening right in front of her. She did not have to spend much effort to see it clearly. She saw her own cold smile, Su Xion's anger, and Chu Li's smile. She was confused and curious. She wanted to know what had happened and why they were surrounded by more than 100 people. Also, why were she and Su Xion so excited? She did not know which sect these people were from. She could not tell. She had never seen them before. They were not from the Church of 9 Spirits or the Heavenly Dragon sect. As soon as she thought of this, the scene in front of her changed again. More than 100 people were attacking a mountain peak and killing without restraint. They did not leave a single person alive, regardless of gender or age. Wherever they passed, there was no living thing left. Their methods were sharp and cruel. They were all like emotionless monsters. Even if they killed a baby, they would not hesitate. The scene in front of her changed again. She saw the 100 people rushing out of Mountain Peak. They were like 100 meteors streaking across the sky. They were extremely fast. She saw a memorial arch on the mountain peak. The words Creation Sect were written on it. Bang! A strange force shot out from the memorial arch. Her eyes hurt, and she quickly closed them. When she opened them again, she found herself still standing in the courtyard. She realized that she was still standing in the courtyard. The courtyard was filled with lotuses, and the fragrance was faint. Chu Li was smiling at her. Congratulations, junior sister. Chu Li smiled. Did you improve the mind illumination scripture? Yes. Jing Xuan nodded and exclaimed, I did not expect the mind illumination scripture to improve. I did not expect it to be so powerful. Chu Li asked, but what did you see? We went up against the Creation Sect. Jing Shui shook her head. The Creation Sect is the most mysterious. I did not expect them to do this. She then told Chu Li what she saw. Chu Li said, it seems like a pure killing team. They are responsible for the sect's dark matters. He was used to such things. No matter which righteous sect it was, they would have a force like this. They were used to do dark matters. It was the same for the Lotus Flower sect. It was just that ordinary disciples did not know about it. Jing Shui was unusually angry. He was not affected by it. Seeing him like this, Jing Shui said furiously, Senior brother, you didn't see what they did. They didn't even let a 3-month-old baby go. They're simply inhuman. Chu Li shook his head. When they do these things, they don't think of themselves as humans. They think of themselves as knives or swords. How powerful are the Creation Sect? He thought of Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan was still mysterious and unfathomable. Even at his current level, he didn't dare say that he could defeat Zhou Qinglan. If he really won against her, his heavens, I would be able to directly see her past and future. But now, there was a cloud of fog covering her. It was so tightly covered that there was not a single clue. Jing Shui's expression darkened as she nodded gently. 100 people can trap us. It must be very astonishing. Their thwart training is astonishing. Even with Chu Li's strength, he was unable to kill them in one move. It was obvious that they were extremely tough and could pose a threat to them. Parallel training technique. Chu Li muttered. Jing Shui said, I'm looking for a cultivation method that specializes in breaking through endurance training. Wait a moment. I'll go look for it. Chu Li thought of the Enlightened Master's Sutra Tower. The Sutra Tower of God of Heaven Mountain contained all exquisite martial arts. Ordinary martial arts were not qualified to enter the Sutra Tower. Thinking of this, he smiled. Junior sister's cultivation level is enough to protect herself. Even if there's an ambush from the Church of Nine Ghosts, we can beat them at their own game. Beat them at their own game. Jing Shui pursed her lips and smiled mischievously. Understood. Chu Li waved his hand and disappeared in the next moment. He appeared in God of Heaven Mountain outside Sun Sihuai's courtyard. This was the place he was most familiar with. However, Sun Sihuai was training hard in the courtyard, forcing himself to practice the giant spirit fist. He clearly couldn't take it anymore, but a wave of anger forced him to grit his teeth and endure, unwilling to give up. He was drenched in sweat like rain, as if he had just been fished out of the water. Chu Li shook his head. It seemed that Sun Sihuai was courageous after being humiliated. His hatred for him was very deep. He needed to resolve it, or else it would be a hidden danger. Thinking of this, he knocked lightly on the door. Sun Sihuai ignored him. Chu Li shook his head and continued knocking. Get lost! Sun Sihuai shouted angrily. Chu Li said, Senior son, you've worked hard. I'm Jing Ru. I know it's you. Get lost! Sun Sihuai shouted. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Why don't we have a chat? Get lost! Sun Sihuai screamed. Get lost! Chu Li said. Why do you have to do this? We don't have any grudges. Hee hee. Sun Sihuai was so angry that he laughed. Chu Li smiled. If I had evil intentions, senior son, you might not be alive now. You might have reincarnated and cultivated again. In that case, I should thank you. Thank you, thank you. Sun Sihuai sneered. Chu Li said, I chose senior son because it was an opportunity. There's no grudge between us. Even now, there's no big grudge, right? I won't kill you. Sun Si Huai said, I'll first cripple you and spare your life. I'll consider it as ending this grudge. Sai Chu Li shook his head. After Sun Si Huai scolded him, he calmed down and turned to leave. He stared at Chu Li coldly. What did you come here for? To resolve my grudge with Senior Sunday, Chu Li said, as a sincere apology. There's no need for that. Sun Si Huai scoffed. You don't have to apologize. I won't accept it. I can't blame you for being weaker. I'll settle this score, and we'll be even. So, Chu Li said, then I'd like to ask Senior Sun about something. Do you think I'll tell you? Sun Si Huai sneered. We're not friends. Chu Li said, I'm looking for a strange technique to break through resistance training. All right, I'll tell you. There's a secret skill in the Sutra library called Phoenix Needle. It's extremely powerful and can break through all resistance training antique studies in this world. Phoenix Needle? Chu Li nodded slowly. Then I'll look for it in the Sutra library. Thank you, Senior Sun. Hey, go ahead. Sun Si Huai smiled strangely. Chu Li smiled and fist saluted. He turned around and strode away. He smiled to himself too. After those few words, Sun Si Huai's anger had dissipated by half. The remaining bit was not enough to motivate him to cultivate. He would be more diligent than before, but he did not have the drive to risk his life. It was almost impossible for him to surpass himself. As for the Phoenix Needle, he was very curious. Sun Si Huai seemed to be up to no good. It was obviously not an ordinary strange technique. He strode to the bottom of the scripture depository pagoda. Looking at the towering pagoda that pierced into the endless void, he involuntarily felt reverence. This was not awe for buildings, but for knowledge and wisdom. This was the root of the enlightened master's strength. He slowed down and gently landed on the ground. He stepped into the tower and began to search for the Phoenix Needle's secret manual. His mind was filled with the first book in every corner of the Sutra library. He finally found this thin secret manual on the 93rd floor. It was located on a bookshelf in the corner. It was at the bottom right corner of the bookshelf. Almost no one paid attention to it. Although the Sutra library would not gather dust, it was obvious that this secret manual had not been read for a long time. It was shelved. Please remember the original domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version, Chapter 4030. He curiously flipped open the thin booklet. A moment later, he closed the book and shook his head with a bitter smile. No wonder nobody read it, and it was thrown to the side. This special technique was indeed powerful, but it had a fatal weakness. It gathered all the inner energy in one strike. What was a phoenix? Nirvana. This needle not only hurt others, but also oneself. Using this needle was like throwing oneself into a flame. One needed nirvana to be reborn. If they couldn't be reborn, they would die. This was a strange technique of mutual destruction. A technique of mutual destruction. Chu Li shook his head. This special technique was suitable for enlightened masters. They reincarnated and their souls were not lost. There was no mystery in the womb. Why did they put this technique on a shelf? He carefully deduced to find a reason why it was abandoned. After a while, he slowly figured it out. It was indeed not suitable to cultivate. This nirvana technique was a unique technique of the phoenix. Nirvana was different from reincarnation. It was a true death. Even if enlightened masters could surpass reincarnation and not be destroyed, once they used this technique and used the path of nirvana, they would die forever if they failed. It was so for enlightened masters and even more so for humans. Chu Li deduced very clearly. Once this technique was used after nirvana, the golden pond could not be resurrected. It would be a complete death. It was really not suitable to cultivate. No wonder Sun Si Huai had such a strange smile. He was finding a problem for himself. But the power of this phoenix needle was indeed earth-shattering. It could kill enemies several times stronger than oneself. It was very beneficial to the sect. Every sect had meant a sacrifice. If they cultivated this phoenix needle, they could greatly weaken the enemy's strength when facing the top masters of the enemy sect. If the Church of Evil had such a secret technique, it would be a disaster for the Lotus sect. Even his life would be in danger. He thought about it and slowly put down the book. Finally, he shook his head and decided to give up. He could cultivate this technique, but it was not suitable to pass it on to others. If Jingxue learned it and couldn't wake up after using it, he would regret it. It was better to change to another special technique. He continued to search and found a little phoenix needle book on this row of bookshelves. This small phoenix needle book seemed to be frequently read. He opened it and smiled. This was a secret book modified by the enlightened masters. It was based on the concept of the phoenix needle, eliminating the path of mutual destruction. Instead, it gathered all of the strength in the body into a single strike. It was highly concentrated and shockingly powerful. Although it couldn't compare to the phoenix needle, it was only slightly inferior. Chuli couldn't help but admire the enlightened god's intelligence. They were actually able to achieve this. His face was full of smiles. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. If Jingxue practiced this, she would no longer be afraid of people who practiced endurance training. She could even fight those with stronger martial arts. He put down the manual and left the sutra depository. He came to a small courtyard and gently knocked on the door. The courtyard door opened, and the heroic Lu Xuanji smiled. Jingru, come in and talk. He sighed to himself. Jingru had come to the Heavenly God Mountain, but he had not sensed it. Even the entire Heavenly God Mountain's array formation had not sensed it. This made him extremely uncomfortable. Even the heavenly demons could not do this. Chuli gave a fist salute. Greetings, Elder. You're welcome. I'm not an outsider. Lu Xuanji said, actually, Jingru, you're far more outstanding than humans and can be considered half a god. Chuli smiled. Elder, you flatter me. It didn't matter if he was a heavenly god or a human. Lu Xuanji smiled. You wouldn't come without a reason. Tell me, what's the matter? Chuli said, Elder, I would like to ask for a secret skill. What secret skill? Small phoenix needle. Lu Xuanji pondered for a while and sighed. This skill is extremely vicious. You must be extremely careful when you teach it to others. Chuli nodded. I want to teach it to junior sister. I won't teach it to others. All right. Lu Xuanji hesitated for a while before nodding in agreement. Thank you, Elder. Chuli gave a fist salute and said solemnly, how's the investigation on the demon seed going? Where did it come from? I'm still investigating. Heavenly demons have no form. It's very hard to detect unless they reveal themselves. As for the demon seed, it's even harder to find. Lu Xuanji frowned. I found it. I'm offering Shu Qi, Chuli said. Lu Xuanji smiled and nodded in satisfaction. All right, I can't help but trouble you. Although this was a transaction and there were no emotions involved, it was clear that Chuli did not rely on being needed. This made him feel satisfied. Chuli gave a fist salute. They'll take my leave. I've allocated a courtyard for you, Lu Xuanji said. Follow me. Chuli raised his eyebrows, but did not refuse. He followed Lu Xuanji and walked 300 feet to the west. There was another small courtyard. How about here? Lu Xuanji smiled. There was a cliff in front of them and a dense forest behind. Once they stepped out of the courtyard, they could see the vast world. The mountains were floating in the clouds like islands. Chuli praised. What a good landlord. It's good that you're satisfied. Lu Xuanji smiled. This will be your residence from now on. Without your permission, no one can enter. Chuli nodded. Lu Xuanji said, you can stay here to cultivate. After all, the god of Heaven Mountain and the Lotus sect are different. Chuli smiled. All right, I'll come here often. I wonder if I can bring my junior sister here? Sure. Lu Xuanji nodded. Clap, clap. He clapped twice. A young girl appeared in front of them and bowed. Elder, son. Master Chu. Chuli nodded. So it's you. She was the holy lady who served him before. She was gentle and gentle. He could not feel her presence on normal days, but she was indispensable. The young girl smiled and nodded without saying anything else. She will continue to serve you from now on. Lu Xuanji said, only she can enter your courtyard. Chuli said, there's no need. Lu Xuanji smiled. Every courtyard has a holy lady. Are you an exception? Chuli looked at the young girl and nodded. If that's the case, it's settled. Although the holy lady serve the enlightened masters, it was an honor in the eyes of others. Moreover, the status of the holy lady was not low. They might give birth to an enlightened master in the future, and their status would depend on their children. Even if they did not give birth to an enlightened master, their lifespan would be much longer than their peers. Even if they could not be like an enlightened master, their lifespan would still be beyond everyone's imagination. Moreover, they would not age and stay young forever. These were all great temptations. Becoming a holy lady was like reaching heaven in a single step. Lu Xuanji laughed. It's a great job to serve you. When you must cherish it. The young girl smiled. Chu Li shook his head. Elder, I'm not an enlightened master after all. I don't have that bloodline. It's not fair to her. You've misunderstood. The holy lady will receive great benefits. Being with an enlightened master is one thing, but the most important thing is the God of Heaven Mountain. Lu Xuanji smiled. By staying on the God of Heaven Mountain, they will stay young forever and live forever. Chu Li smiled. Then I'm relieved. He decided to let Jing Xue come over. If there was a chance to bring all the girls over, it would be the best. Therefore, he had to find Zhou Qinglan as soon as possible and find a way to the lower realm. Lu Xuanji said, I won't disturb you then. He turned and left. Chu Li turned and entered the house. When he followed behind him like a gust of wind or a shadow, she was silent and would not disturb him. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4031. Chu Li walked around his courtyard and nodded in satisfaction. An enlightened master had reached the pinnacle in terms of enjoyment. Humans could not compare. Everything in the courtyard was exquisite and elegant, matching his preferences. After circling around the area, he left immediately. In the next moment, he returned to his courtyard in the Lotus Sect. Jing Xue was cultivating in her courtyard. There was an eye 10 feet above her head. It seemed to be open but not closed, as if it was sleeping. Chu Li was amazed. The mind illumination scripture was indeed a mystical scripture. It was better than his deduction technique and the eye of the sky. Jing Xue sensed his appearance. She stopped her cultivation and appeared in his courtyard. Chu Li smiled. I got a set of small phoenix needles. Try cultivating it. Jing Xue asked, Is it really an enlightened master's technique? Chu Li shook his head. It was originally from the Phoenix clan. The enlightened masters obtained it and modified it. Jing Xue smiled. Senior brother, we are so extravagant now. Cultivating an enlightened master's technique. Really, she smiled sweetly, her face radiant. Chu Li smiled and nodded. I want to go to the creation sect. Chu Li said, I'll send you to God of Heaven Mountain first. It's a mystical place. Cultivating there is 10 times better than here. Jing Xue frowned and shook her head after some thought. Forget it. Chu Li immediately thought of the reason. Is it because of the mind illumination scripture? Jing Xue nodded. Chu Li said, Junior sister, you worry too much. Our energy is limited. Plus, there's the golden pool. It's not a big deal. As long as his reputation spread and shocked everyone, Shan Xing and the others who could completely destroy souls would not destroy the souls of the Lotus Sect disciples, unless they were not afraid of his revenge. As long as their souls were not destroyed, they could be reincarnated after death. It did not matter. All right then. Jing Xue thought it made sense. She also wanted to see the mystical god of Heaven Mountain. Chu Li pulled her sleeve and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in his courtyard on God of Heaven Mountain. Spiritual energy surged into his body. Jing Xue felt something strange and quickly activated her inner energy. She felt her cultivation level improve by leaps and bounds. Chu Li smiled at her. As expected of God of Heaven Mountain, Jing Xue smiled when he appeared gracefully and bowed. Your Excellency, Chu Li said, my junior sister will be staying here for a while. Yes. When he nodded lightly, Chu Li smiled. Junior sister, you stay here and cultivate. I'll make a trip to the creation sect and check on the situation there. Senior, I don't have a good impression of the creation sect. Jing Xue frowned slightly and said, the creation sect is too mysterious. Furthermore, they are cold and heartless. They don't seem to be orthodox. Chu Li said, no matter what, let's pay a visit to their sect leader first. He could finally see Zhou Qinglan, and he would soon be able to see Shao Qi and the others. Just thinking about it made him excited, and he could not wait to take action. All right, Jing Shui did not persuade him any further. There was almost no one in the world who could threaten him. If he still didn't feel at ease, then he would really be taking things too hard. Chu Li was about to leave. Jing Shui was suddenly taken aback. She shook her head and said, Senior brother. Chu Li looked at her. An eye suddenly condensed in the void above Jing Shui's head. It slowly opened, and she frowned. Something's wrong. Chu Li asked, what is it? 2 more have died, said Jing Shui. Chu Li's expression darkened. Jing Shui said, Senior brother, it's not good this time. These 2 senior brothers have completely died and not been reborn. Chu Li's expression darkened even more. There were only a handful of people in the world who could completely kill a Lotus Sect disciple. It could be Shen Xing, Tan Jingya from the Church of Nine Evil, or someone from the Creation Sect. Shen Xing could not kill another Lotus Sect disciple, and Tan Jingya would not do anything either. The only possibility was the Creation Sect. Come, let's go take a look, Chu Li said in a low voice. Jing Shui sighed. We still can't stay here. God of Heaven Mountain seems to be separated from the world by a distance. Chu Li frowned and nodded. He did not let Jing Shui worry so much before, because there was no one who could threaten the lives of the Lotus Sect disciples. Even if they were killed, they would only be reborn. They would not be completely destroyed. Reality had slapped him in the face. He was furious, and his killing intent surged. The 2 disappeared in a flash. The next moment, they appeared in a small temple and saw the corpse of a Lotus Sect disciple. Chu Li glanced at the disciple and shook his head. The soul had already dispersed. He said in a low voice, Junior sister, please wait. He then disappeared. When he reappeared, he already brought 2 corpses with him. They were both Lotus Sect disciples and looked very young. The souls of the 3 were destroyed. Chu Li disappeared again and arrived outside Lu Xuanji's small courtyard. He said in a low voice, Elder Lu, sorry for disturbing you again. Please come in. Lu Xuanji said. Chu Li pushed the door open and went in. He immediately closed fist saluted to Lu Xuanji, who was cultivating in the small courtyard. I would like to borrow Xianfang's mirror. Lu Xuanji's expression changed. Chu Li said, Lotus Sect disciples were killed and their souls scattered. I can only use Xianfang's mirror. Okay. Lu Xuanji hesitated for a moment before nodding. Because of Chu Li's previous actions and his understanding of Chu Li, it was a good thing that he owed him a big favor. Whether Xianfang's mirror could save an enlightened master might be questionable, but whether it could save humans was unquestionable. Wait, we'll go right away, Lu Xuanji said. Chu Li looked grateful, but did not say much. He closed fist saluted. Lu Xuanji left in a hurry. After about 10 minutes, he brought a small mirror to Chu Li and said, let's go. Chu Li's gaze fell on the small mirror. This is Xianfang's mirror. You can't see it, right? Lu Xuanji smiled. A divine object will naturally hide itself. You can't see its value. Chu Li nodded. Let's go. He pulled Lu Xuanji's sleeve and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in front of Jing Shui. Jing Shui was staring at the 3 of them. She wanted to see what happened to them, but she did not see anything. It seemed that as the souls disappeared, so did the karma. Lu Xuanji saw the situation of the 3 of them, and his face turned solemn. Chu Li said, Elder, did you see anything? This is the method of the heavenly demon, Lu Xuanji said in a low voice. The martial arts that Jing Ru and you humans cultivate, although it can also destroy souls, is different. Chu Li said in a low voice, Heavenly Demon. Lu Xuanji said, I didn't expect the Heavenly Demon to appear again. It seems that they have been planning for a long time. They have been here for a long time, but have been silently transforming. Now they're almost demonized. Chu Li said, Can we find the Heavenly Demon directly? Lu Xuanji smiled bitterly. If we can find them, They are not heavenly demons. Heavenly demons have no form and are the hardest to find. Not to mention searching. Even if the heavenly demon appears in front of us, we won't be able to recognize them unless they use demonic techniques. Chuli said slowly, save them first. There will be a way. Then let's begin. Lu Xuanji said, saving them requires enough lifespan. How much lifespan do they have left is the same as saving them. Where are you going to find it? I'll do it, Chuli said. Lu Xuanji looked at him and did not say much. He took out a small mirror and shone it at the three of them. The small mirror emitted a bright light that enveloped the three of them. Then, a few lights could be vaguely seen floating above them. They floated around inside and outside of their bodies like swimming fishes. There were black, white, and red colors. He looked at Chu Li and said, stand among them. Chu Li stepped into the bright light. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4032. The light drilled into his body. Chu Li felt refreshed, followed by a strong sense of weakness. An invisible force was being sucked away. He felt that it was his lifespan. Fortunately, his lifespan could be replenished, so it was not his original lifespan that was consumed. The lights that were originally floating like fishes suddenly expanded and contracted. Finally, they turned into three flames that drilled into the three people's bodies. Some drilled into their shoulders, some into their heads, and finally disappeared into their bodies. Chuli took a step back and looked at the three. Lu Xuanji withdrew Xian Fang's mirror and smiled. Not bad. He had not expected to go so smoothly. Xian Fang's mirror really saved people easily. Chuli gave a fist salute. Jing Shui stared at the three. An eye appeared above her head, but she shook her head. She did not see anything. The three slowly woke up. They quickly remembered what happened earlier. Their expressions changed, and they turned to look. When they saw Chu Li and Jing Ru, they were relieved. Masters Junior Su Hua, Masters Junior Su Jia, Masters Junior Su Miao, you all died once, and your souls were scattered. Jing Shui frowned. Do you know who killed you? Su Hua was a burly young man. He said, I didn't expect a young man to be so powerful. He felt that he was careless and did not care about his life. He did not expect the young man to be so powerful, killing him in less than 10 moves. Mine was also a young man. Su Jie said. Mine too. Su Miao said. Was it the same person who killed us? The three looked at each other. Chuli activated the great circle mystical mirror and saw what they saw. He nodded. It was the same person. Su Miao said, were we not far away? They did not know the distance between them and their fellow disciples. Chuli shook his head. You were more than 1,000 miles away, and you were killed almost at the same time. It was obvious that this person was proficient in void diversion, not inferior to me. The heavenly demon Formless is indeed proficient in void diversion. Lu Xuanji said slowly. In fact, he was the most proficient in void diversion. He looked at Chu Li. Jingru, looks like you'll have to do it yourself. The others are no match for him. Chu Li nodded. Leave it to me. He had already sensed a strange aura from the three of them, combined with the feeling from the demon seed. It was somewhat similar to this strange aura. He could find this aura. Thinking of this, he suddenly disappeared. No matter what the reason was, he had killed a disciple of the Lotus Flower School and even destroyed his soul. He had to take revenge. He arrived at a mountain peak and saw two people fighting. One was the beautiful Shun Xing, and the other was a handsome young man. He had handsome eyebrows, bright eyes, and an ape-like back and a waspish waist. He was truly a rare handsome man. When the two of them stood together, they looked like a perfect couple, but at this moment they were fighting fiercely and violently. Everywhere they passed, the stones were turned into powder. The powder covered the two of them, but it couldn't get close to them. It could only form a round screen around them, blocking the view of outsiders. Chu Li could see it clearly, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. He activated the great circle mystical void mirror to its limit and observed this handsome young man. A moment later, Chu Li felt that something was off. His body seemed to contain several auras, and each aura was mysterious. It was as if his body contained boundless power and countless mental cultivation methods. His face was solemn, and he did not dare to be careless. The heavenly demon had no form. These 4 simple words contained a shocking and strange power. Moreover, every heavenly demon was different, and it was impossible to guard against. Bang, 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 bang. In the muffled sound, Shun Xing and the young man's fists and palms clashed, producing a loud, muffled sound of thunder. The whole mountain peak seemed to tremble with it, and it was earth-shattering. Chu Li's eyebrows twitched. Shun Xing was improving more and more. He was improving by leaps and bounds, and so was she. Compared to a few days ago, she had improved a lot, and this young man was even more terrifying. He steadily suppressed Shun Xing. Shun Xing attacked with all her might, but she could not break through his defense. He was as solid as a rock. Shun Xing said coldly, "And Su Shi, what's wrong with you?" As she spoke, her attacks did not stop. And Su Shi said in a low voice, "Sister Shun thinks that you're a genius, and I'm mediocre? You shouldn't be so strong." Shun Xing scoffed, and Su Shi shook his head and laughed. "What kind of logic is this? Only you are strong, and others shouldn't be so strong?" Shun Xing said, "You didn't show any aptitude before, but you suddenly became so strong. It's really strange. What are your intentions?" "Sister Shun, your intentions are not right." And Su Shi shook his head and said, "Why don't you think about whether or not I had a fortuitous encounter?" "Oh, I understand. You're coveting my fortuitous encounter and looking for an excuse." "Strange my ass." Shun Xing scolded. "Are you crazy? You want to kill the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect?" "Why can't I kill the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect?" And Su Shi said, "Sister, you forgot your original plan. You wanted to swallow up the Lotus Flower sect. Times have changed." Shun Xing scoffed. "Jing Ru is so strong now. You have ulterior motives for killing the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect." Sigh. And Su Shi shook his head. Where did the sister who has always been arrogant and sees the heroes of the world as nothing go? Shun Xing frowned and said, "In short, you want to harm our extreme emperor sect." "Sister, are you on our extreme emperor sect side, or on Jing Ru's side?" And Su Shi snorted and said, "They haven't said anything yet, but you came to deal with me first. If others see you, they'll think you're a disciple of the Lotus Flower sect. By the time Jing Ru finds out, you're already dead." Shun Xing said coldly. And Su Shi chuckled and said, "Jing Ru isn't that great. I'll kill him." "Sister, you wouldn't be reluctant, right?" "What nonsense are you spouting?" Shun Xing shouted. "Truly a despicable person." It said that women are outgoing. And Su Shi sighed and said, "These words aren't false at all. Right now, you're siding with Jing Ru and not our extreme emperor sect." "Shut up. I won't watch you court death." Shun Xing sneered. And Su Shi said, "With the two of us joining forces, even if Jing Ru comes, what can he do?" "Sister, with my cultivation, defeating him is as easy as flipping my hand." "Ridiculous." Shun Xing continued to attack wildly. And Su Shi said, "Looks like I have to take out my true ability to convince you." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly sped up and instantly appeared behind Shun Xing. He slammed his palm on her back so quickly that Shun Xing couldn't react in time. Bam! Shun Xing's entire body lit up in black light. Then the lifeless divine sword at her waist stabbed backward. Ding! And Su Shi bent his finger and lightly flicked it. The lifeless divine sword flew away from Shun Xing and tumbled in the air. And Su Shi took a step forward and was about to grab the lifeless divine sword with a proud smile on his face. Just as he was about to grab it, a hand suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed the hilt of the sword before him. Ooh! And Su Shi was furious. His 5 hands were spread out like claws and swung down fiercely to cut off this wrist. How vicious! Chu Li chuckled and took a step to Shun Xing's side. He returned the lifeless divine sword and said with a smile, "Miss Shun, we meet again. You're finally here." Shun Xing scoffed and took the lifeless divine sword without hesitation. With a gentle wave, a golden light shot towards Ensu Shur. Ensu Shur stared at Chu Li with a gloomy expression and kept staring at him. At the same time, he gently avoided the golden light as if it was insignificant. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4033. Xing was proud and arrogant. Seeing him being so careless, her anger and killing intent surged like a raging wave. She sneered, "Good, good." Chu Li said, "Miss Shun, you rest first and watch from the side." "Let me do it." "What do you mean, Jingru?" Xing stared at him in dissatisfaction. Chu Li shook his head. "He's from the Imperial sect." "Yes," Xing said. The Imperial sect was originally a very inconspicuous sect. I didn't expect it to have a fortuitous encounter and advance by leaps and bounds. Chu Li said, "He killed 3 disciples from my sect. More importantly, their souls were destroyed and can't be reborn from the golden pool. He really deserves to die." Xing gritted her teeth and said hatefully. She could also destroy people's souls, but it didn't really disappear. Instead, she entered the lifeless deity's realm and had a chance of resurrection. She stared at Ensu Shur. "Resurrection? Haha, sister, your thoughts are really strange. If you want to kill, why think about resurrection?" Ensu Shur shook his head and laughed. "Then what's the point of killing? It's a waste of energy." Chu Li said, "Miss Shun, do you want to do it or should I? Looks like you guys have really hooked up. Why don't you come together?" Ensu Shur shook his head. "One person is not enough for me." Chu Li laughed. Xing didn't smile at all. She stared coldly at Ensu Shur and squinted her eyes. "Do you really want to die?" Ensu Shur smiled. "Sister, you just don't know what fortuitous encounter I had." Xing gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "Yes, you're right. I'm just curious about what fortuitous encounter you had." "Haha, not curious but greedy, right?" Ensu Shur laughed. "Sister Shun, you're finally willing to tell the truth. That's greed." Xing sneered. "What a despicable person." Chu Li said, "Miss Shun." Xing glared at him and said, "I'll teach the disciple of the Imperial sect a lesson myself." Chu Li shook his head. "He's a disciple of the Imperial sect, but he's now the mortal enemy of the Lotus sect. What are you trying to do?" Xing scoffed. "Are you trying to fight with me?" Chu Li said, "How about I deal with him first, and then we can discuss." "Not good." Xing said, "I will do it myself." Chu Li sighed. "Miss Shun, you're no match for him." Xing laughed. Chu Li nodded solemnly. "He's been teasing you all along. He hasn't shown his true abilities yet. You should understand." Xing's beautiful face darkened. Chu Li said, "Although it's a little cruel, this is the truth." "Shut up." Xing snorted in annoyance. She glared at Ensu Shur. "Really?" Ensu nodded with a smile. "As expected of Jingru. You can indeed see through me. Junior Martial sister, we are not enemies after all. You can deal with me, but I won't deal with you." "Nice words." Xing glanced at him and said, "What kind of intentions do you have?" She would never believe on Su Shur's words. Previously, if he had grabbed the lifeless divine sword, he would have killed her immediately. She could clearly feel his murderous intent. Now he was saying that he wouldn't kill him. What a joke. Clearly, this was a despicable person. Back then, he had misjudged him and thought that he was honest. Chu Li said, "No matter what intentions he has to die." "Jingru." Xing frowned. Chu Li smiled. "Miss Shun, do you think that we shouldn't kill him for revenge since he killed 3 of our disciples? You really can't save them?" Xing scoffed. "You're resourceful. You might be able to save them." She now had an inexplicable confidence in Chu Li. Chu Li looked at Ensu Shur and said, "You're a heavenly demon, right?" "What heavenly demon?" "I'm an enlightened master." Ensu Shur said, "Jingru, if you want to avenge them, then come. It's fine even if you come with Junior Martial Sister Shun." Chu Li smiled. "We can deal with them all at once. Don't worry about it twice, right?" All right, you're right." And Su Shur laughed and said to Shun Xing, Junior Marshall's sister Shun, you have to die too. He suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person. Shun Xing felt that he had suddenly become a stranger. His words were repeated and contradictory, which made her feel very strange. She turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li nodded and said, he's a heavenly demon. What's a heavenly demon? Shun Xing asked. It's a long story. You have to understand that it has already surpassed the level of humans. It's an immortal body, Chu Li said. Shun Xing looked at him dubiously. She believed Chu Li, but his words were too bizarre. Chu Li said, since he's a heavenly demon, he doesn't care about humans. Why did he kill our Lotus Sect disciples? The Lotus Sect disciples have a refreshing aura. And Su Shi smiled and revealed an intoxicated expression. He took a deep breath. It's fascinating. Chu Li frowned. What aura? Of course you don't know. And Su Shi was still immersed in his memories. He said intoxicatedly, it's like humans eating those lambs. They have to pick some delicious ones, right? Chu Li's face darkened. He looked at Shun Xing. Shun Xing frowned and stared at Su Shi. Hadn't Su Shi lost his mind? Chu Li said, humans are not your prey. Huh? And Su Shi shook his head in disdain. He sighed. No one is willing to be the prey. Just like how lambs don't want to be your meal, right? Chu Li's face darkened. He said slowly, then do it. Shun Xing frowned and looked at the two. She slowly took a step back. And Su Shi said lightly, Jingru, your auras are even more wonderful. I can enjoy myself today. I didn't lure you here for nothing. Chu Li smiled. Then what are you waiting for? I haven't talked to my heart's content in a long time. And Su Shi said, the world is so ignorant. I can't explain it clearly. Even if he spoke, the other would still be confused. Chu Li was different. He knew his identity. He knew how terrifying and honorable he was. It was satisfying to talk to someone like that. Chu Li shook his head. Is the demonic nature of a heavenly demon obsessed with talking? It doesn't matter if you know. And Su Shi nodded lightly. I'll let you die knowing. It's not letting us down. Shun Xing's beautiful face darkened. She stared at him without saying a word. She wanted to know what the heavenly demon was. But this guy kept on talking and didn't make a move. Chu Li threw a light punch. This punch was relaxed and natural. It was like a casual stretch, but contained a natural and wonderful charm. Su Shi greeted the punch with a grin. Pop! It was like a pebble falling into a deep well. And Su Shi's face changed. His body froze. Then there was a continuous bam, 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 bam sound from his body. It was like a broken bowstring. With the bam, his body became shorter and shorter. Finally, he became a pile of mud on the ground. He couldn't move. Good fist technique. Shun Xing praised. She stared at Su Shi. She shook her head and smiled. The heavenly demon is nothing. Chu Li sighed. The terror of the heavenly demon is beyond your imagination. They can't be killed. The martial arts of the world can't destroy them. Isn't he dead? Shun Xing pursed her red lips. And Su Shi was already motionless. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. Chapter 4034. Chu Li shook his head. You think he's dead? He's still not dead? Shun Xing scoffed. Unless we throw him into your golden pool now. Too bad he's not a disciple of the Lotus Sect. He can't be thrown into the pool. She knew the golden pool excluded disciples outside of the Lotus Sect. It was useless to throw him in. He couldn't enter the pool. Chu Li said, the heavenly demon is immortal. If he's dead, then he's not the heavenly demon. Does that mean you've wronged him? Shun Xing said. Chu Li nodded. Yes. If we really misunderstood him, he still killed 3 of our disciples. All right, let's wait and see. Just as she finished speaking, and Su Shi, who had turned into a pile of mud without a single bone, suddenly stood up. It was as if there was an invisible force supporting him. Even without bones, he could still stand straight and stare at Chu Li. Not waiting for Chu Li to move, his figure flashed and was about to disappear. Humph! Chu Li sneered. Want to run? In the next moment, a golden light shone on Su Shi. Su Shi froze and did not move. Shun Xing scoffed, God's eye. Chu Li stared at Su Shi. In the next moment, he appeared in front of him and threw a light punch, firmly hitting his chest. Bang, 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 bang. Muffled sounds rang out. This time, the sound was different from before. But with each sound, he would spit out an arrow of blood. After 18 sounds, 18 arrows of blood were also spat out. And Su Shi once again fell into the bloody mud. His clothes dyed red. He was in a sorry state. Good fist technique. This time, Shunxing saw Chu Li's punch clearly. An ordinary punch, but it clearly had a wonderful fist force. She was itching to try it. Chu Li glanced at her and shook his head. This fist can only kill the enemy. It can't be stopped. It's best not to try. Shunxing said, he's going to die this time, right? Chu Li shook his head, and Su Shi laid motionless on the ground, completely breathless. He's really going to die this time. Shunxing said. Chu Li said, the heavenly demon is immortal. Let's wait and see. What is the heavenly demon? Shunxing said. Chu Li shook his head. Check for yourself. You might not believe me even if I tell you. Okay. Shunxing nodded. Heavenly demons had such strange abilities, undying and imperishable. It was indeed a bit bizarre. Even heavenly deities weren't this powerful. With her current abilities, it wasn't difficult for her to kill a heavenly deity. In that case, heavenly demons were far more powerful than heavenly deities. It was truly hard to believe. Su Shi suddenly let out a strange laugh. The corners of Su Shi's mouth curled up into a strange arc. His entire face had a strange expression, like he was smiling yet not smiling, like he was crying yet not crying. Amidst the strange laughter, Su Shi stood up straight, his eyes shooting out green light. Shunxing's hair stood on end. Her martial arts skill was outstanding and rarely seen in the world, but when she heard this strange laughter and saw this strange smile, she could not help but feel her hair stand on end, and she wanted to break into a run. Amidst Su Shi's strange laughter, he turned into a stream of light and shot towards Chu Li at an even faster speed than before. Chu Li threw a light punch. Pop, 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 pop. It was like a dozen pebbles were thrown into a deep well. He collapsed again, and his laughter came to an abrupt end. He's still not dead. Shunxing also noticed the strangeness. Seeing Su Shi's body crack and then suffer such a heavy injury. But the first time it happened was because the fist force destroyed his bones and flesh. And the second time, it was destroyed again. The third time was the same as the first two times. She deduced at once that Su Shi's recovery ability was shocking. In an instant, his body was completely healed. His bones and flesh were as good as before. This was a terrifying recovery ability. Even the reincarnations of the Golden Pool and the Abyss of 9 Spirits were not this fast. Until now, she had never heard of anyone with such a shocking recovery ability. Chu Li kept staring at Su Shi. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Since the heavenly demons were going to appear in large numbers, the more he understood, the better. It would be difficult for him to deal with them alone. If he could find the weakness of the heavenly demons and ask Shunxing and Jingxue for help, that would be the best. He did not even need to kill the heavenly demons. He only needed to suppress them. After all, he was only one person and could not split himself. Based on the cunning of the heavenly demons, they would definitely think of using this point. Woo! Amidst the strange cries, Su Shi stood up again. His body was already filthy, and his face had become terrifying and strange. He did not look like a human, but more like a demon. Shunxing frowned as she watched, wishing she could just turn around and leave. Although Su Shi was making strange cries and his expression was ferocious, his eyes were still human, just that they did not contain human emotions. Chu Li sighed. Looks like there's no weakness. What weakness are you trying to find? Shunxing scoffed. I'm going to leave first. Chu Li said, forget it. I'll just kill him. His eyes suddenly brightened. Su Shi, who was about to pounce, suddenly stopped and then stared blankly at Chu Li. His gaze changed from sharp to blank. Then it quickly dimmed like a lamp that had been extinguished. Bang! On Su Shi fell straight back, his body actually shattered into powder. A gust of wind blew, and the powder rustled and drifted away, completely disappearing from the world. Shun Xing stared blankly, and slowly came back to her senses, turning to look at Chu Li. Chu Li said, "Miss Shun, farewell." "Wait." Shun Xing shouted. Chu Li looked at her. Shun Xing said, "He's dead just like that. Completely dead." Chu Li said, "Heavenly demons are immortal, but I've cultivated a mystical technique that can destroy them." Shun Xing let out a sigh of relief. "Looks like it can still be destroyed." Chu Li nodded. Shun Xing said, "You killed Senior On. This debt will not be easy to settle." Chu Li smiled. "On Su Shi is a heavenly demon. I eliminated the demon to protect the righteous. That's all." "Then you be careful." Shun Xing scoffed. "If the sect investigates, I will report the reason, but I won't hide it for you." Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and smiled. "Then I'll take my leave." He disappeared after saying that, leaving only Shun Xing standing on the spot, lost in thought, staring blankly at the place whereon Su Shi disappeared. A gust of wind blew, and the white powder completely dissipated. A person had completely disappeared, and his soul had been scattered. Shun Xing suddenly shuddered. She thought of On Su Shi's immortality and his unbelievably strange behavior, and felt more and more frightened. So she returned to the sect and began to search for news of heavenly demons. Unfortunately, there were no clues in the sutra library, as if heavenly demons did not exist in this world. This made her disappointed, and she went straight to the sect leader of Zenith sect. She ignored that he was cultivating and directly barged into his isolated cultivation to inquire. In the end, the sect leader of Zenith sect did not know. Shun Xing was helpless and went straight to the Lotus sect. She saw Su Hua and the other two because they also came to Chu Li's side. "Huh, you guys?" Shun Xing pointed at Su Hua and the other two and said in surprise, "Not dead?" She knew that On Su Shi killed the three of them, and without investigating clearly, she would not rashly question On Su Shi. Su Hua and the other two looked at her. Chu Li came out to greet them, and Jing Shui was behind him. "Jing Ru, aren't they dead? Their souls scattered?" Shun Xing scoffed. "If the three of them did not die, then On Su Shi." Chu Li smiled. "I saved them. It's Junior Jing Ru who used his lifespan in exchange for our lives." Su Hua sighed. "I really can't repay this. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. M. Chapter 4035. Chu Li cannot help but laugh. "Masters, Junior Masters, it's just a little of your lifespan. It's not a big deal." The three of them shook their heads in silence. Lifespan was the most precious thing. Even if one was a disciple of the Lotus Flower School and could reincarnate, their lifespan could not be increased. Jin Shi could only guarantee that the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect would not die an unnatural death and die of old age, but it was unable to increase their lifespan. Once their lifespan was up, the Jin Shi would not be able to reincarnate again and would completely return to the cycle of reincarnation, experiencing the mystery of the womb. If one's luck and merits were insufficient, it would be difficult for them to return to the Lotus Flower sect. Su Hua said, "We were indeed too careless. Did Shiji kill that person?" Chu Li nodded. Su Hua sighed. "This person is truly terrifying." Su Ning said, "We are too useless." A random disciple from the extreme monarch sect was actually killed without being able to fight back. Chu Li shook his head. "Masters Junior, this person's cultivation level is higher than Miss Shun's. Then we are not wronged," Su Miao said with a smile. Shun Xing snorted. "Jingru, what exactly is a heavenly demon?" Chu Li fist saluted as a greeting. "I can't explain it clearly. Formlessness is the essence of the heavenly demon. It's formless, traceless, immortal, and indestructible, just like the demonic nature and Buddhist nature of the human heart. As long as the demonic nature exists, the heavenly demon will exist." Shunxing said thoughtfully, "Don't tell me I'll become a skyscraper demon like Buddha." Chu Li nodded slowly. Shunxing's expression was solemn. She found this troublesome. She knew that the Buddha's power had already exceeded the level of mortals, stepping into an even more mystical realm, possibly even above that of a heavenly deity. The fact that the heavenly demon could be mentioned in the same breath as the Buddha was truly terrifying. "What method is there?" Shunxing said. "You were able to destroy them. What strange technique did you use?" "The deity race's mystical art." Chu Li said, "If I didn't have this miraculous technique, I wouldn't have been able to kill the heavenly demon. It doesn't matter how high my cultivation level is." Shunxing snorted. "So you're saying that I have no hope?" Chu Li pondered for a moment and shook his head. "Based on Miss Shun's comprehension and cultivation level, you can give it a try. Junior sister, you can too." He suddenly thought, instead of letting them protect themselves from the heavenly demon, why not let them directly kill the heavenly demon? "Can I do it too?" Jingxue hesitated. Chu Li smiled. "Junior sister is so smart. Why can't I?" Jingxue felt a little embarrassed. Although she was smart, she could not compare to Chu Li. She could only assist Chu Li. Shunxing snorted and said, "Since it's a miraculous skill of a heavenly deity, how could they let us humans cultivate it? No matter what, they are still opponents, right?" Chu Li shook his head. "The enlightened masters have a hard time dealing with heavenly demons. If someone can refine it and use it to deal with the heavenly demons, they would be more than happy to do so." Shunxing glanced sideways at Jingxue and snorted. "Then there's no harm in practicing." She wanted to see if Jingxue could figure it out before her. She was inferior to Jingru, but was she inferior to Jingxue? No matter how much of a heroine she was still a woman who liked to compete with others. Chu Li said, "I'll go ask the enlightened master first." He was extremely confident, otherwise he wouldn't have asked. Go. Shunxing waved her hand. Su Hua and the other two tactfully took their leave. Chu Li soon appeared outside Lu Xuanji's courtyard on God of Heaven Mountain. Lu Xuanji opened the door and smiled. "What is it now?" Chu Li told him his plan. Lu Xuanji frowned and muttered, "Can they really comprehend the Azure Cloud Sword invitation?" Chu Li said slowly, "I can't say for sure, but although they are women, their comprehension is not inferior to mine." "All right then, let them practice." Lu Xuanji agreed decisively. In his opinion, the Azure Cloud Sword invitation was not suitable for the enlightened masters to cultivate. Otherwise, with the enlightened master's intelligence and comprehension, they wouldn't have failed to comprehend it after so long. Instead, it was Jingru, a human, who comprehended it. Although Jingru was strong, she wouldn't be that much stronger than the enlightened masters. He had only realized this after Chu Li had mastered the Azure Cloud Divine Sword. If Chu Li had not mastered it, they would still have been studying it relentlessly. As for now, the situation was different. Some enlightened masters were detached and didn't waste time after understanding it. Some enlightened masters were unconvinced. If a human could comprehend it, why couldn't the enlightened masters? They were still studying in isolation. The enlightened masters didn't force them. They could give up or continue studying. If they succeeded, they would be happy. If they failed, it wasn't a big deal. In the process of studying the Azure Cloud Sword invitation, they would gain a lot. It was just that it was extremely hard, even harder than cultivating the giant spirit fist. After coming to this realization, Lu Xuanji was very depressed. The Azure Cloud Sword invitation was the only mystical technique that could restrain the heavenly demon. Until now, no other mystical technique could destroy the heavenly demon. As enlightened masters, it was a great irony that they couldn't cultivate the Azure Cloud Sword invitation. Therefore, many enlightened masters didn't give up. If more people cultivated the Azure Cloud Sword invitation, it would help reduce the pressure on the enlightened masters. As for the threat they posed to the enlightened masters after mastering it, it didn't matter in front of the heavenly demon. If the heavenly demon wasn't destroyed, they would have to escape this world. The strength of the humans in this world had nothing to do with them. Moreover, Even if the humans became stronger after destroying the heavenly demon, they could still leave. Humans didn't have the void-tracking ability of the heavenly demon. Chuli cupped his fists. Thank you, Elder Lu. The heavenly demon from the extreme monarch sect has been destroyed, but I suspect that there will be more and more heavenly demons. I can't deal with them alone. All right. Lu Xuanji felt that it made sense. Chuli bade farewell and returned to his courtyard. He wrote 16 words and hung them in the gazebo in his courtyard, letting the 2 calligraphy scrolls flutter in the wind. Let's begin. Chuli smiled. This is the Azure Cloud Sword invitation? Shenxing looked at Chu Li's 16 words and shook her head. I can't tell how powerful it is. Chu Li said, let's talk after you've comprehended it. Shenxing stared at the scroll and began to read it. Jing Shui stared at the 16 words and pondered. The 2 women spat blood at the same time and flew backward. They were unconscious in midair. Chu Li's expression changed. Plans really couldn't keep up with the changes. He didn't expect that they couldn't withstand it at the beginning and lost the possibility of comprehending it. Once one fainted from comprehending the Azure Cloud Sword invitation and was injured by it, it was impossible to cultivate the Azure Cloud Sword invitation. Chu Li frowned. Logically, they shouldn't be like this. Although his Azure Cloud Sword invitation had improved, its sword intent was extremely weak. He was puzzled and quickly helped them recover. Damn it, Shenxing scoffed. She pushed Chu Li away and continued to read. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Forget it. You don't have to cultivate anymore. Shenxing glared at him, unconvinced. Chu Li said, once you pass out, it's impossible to cultivate anymore. This is the end. You are not fated with the Azure Cloud Sword invitation. What kind of rule is this? Shenxing said unhappily. We've just started and you can't do it? Chu Li smiled bitterly and nodded. Jing Shui sighed. This sword technique is too powerful. We can't withstand it. Shenxing rolled her eyes. Chu Li said, let's cultivate something else. There should be other ways to deal with heavenly demons. There's no invincible person in this world. That's true. Shenxing said, all right, then we won't cultivate. She was unconvinced, but she didn't continue to be stubborn. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. Keep this. It'll be terrible if it gets out, Shenxing said. Chu Li nodded and put away the scroll. Please remember this book's original domain name. The fastest website for mobile version updates, M. Chapter 4036. He saw that the 2 girls were trying to stay alert and said, go back and rest. The Ash Cloud Sword invitation is very powerful and lasts for a long time. Do not be careless or you will not recover. Shenxing glared at him and scoffed. It's just a small injury. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Chu Li said, be careful. The situation is complicated now. I think the heavenly demon is adding fuel to the fire. Then you should be careful, especially Jing Shui, Shenxing said. It's best to find a place to hide. Everyone knew that Jing Shui's meridian was Jingru's. Jing Shui pursed her lips and smiled. I will go to God of Heaven Mountain. That's not bad, Shenxing said. I'll go to... Wait. There was a sudden shout. Shenxing looked at Jing Shui. An eye appeared on top of Jing Shui's head. It was slightly closed. Jing Shui's face was solemn as she shook her head. Your Zenith sect disciple is in trouble. Ah, you can see that? Is that true? Shenxing laughed and stared at the eye doubtfully. At a glance, it was obvious that the eye was fake. It was blurry, and one could vaguely feel that it was half closed and dozing off. What can an eye like that see? However, it was a manifestation of outward appearance. Clearly, the technique was very profound, and it had to be at a profound level to have such an appearance. Jing Shui said, this person must have a deep connection with you. He sensed it from you. Connection with me? Shenxing frowned and her expression changed. It can't be my younger brother? You have a younger brother? Jing Shui was shocked. I've always claimed to be an orphan. Shenxing nodded. Outsiders do not know that I have a younger brother who is only 30. He's still a child. Then you still have parents? Jing Shui asked. Shenxing shook her head. My parents are no longer here. Younger brother has taken refuge in a small stockade in the Zenith Sex territory. He will not be in danger. Then let's go, Jing Xue said. Chu Li pulled up Jing Xue's sleeve with his left hand and Shun Xing's sleeve with his right. The three disappeared from his courtyard. A young man soon appeared in his courtyard. He was a Lotus Sect disciple. He sneaked into the courtyard and looked at the ash cloud sword invitation on the table. The three appeared at the foot of a mountain. Right here, Jing Xue cried out involuntarily. She thought of the situation she had predicted earlier. It was exactly the same as the situation here. It was as familiar as yesterday. Chu Li frowned. This is bad. I'm afraid we're too late. He took a step into the mountain peak and arrived in front of a mountain stronghold. The smell of blood surged into his nostrils. He had the all-knowing scripture, and his 5 senses were 10 times sharper than an ordinary person's. The impact he felt was even stronger. He felt the monstrous killing intent and shouted, "Stop!" His voice reverberated in the void like a great bell. Everywhere it passed, all living creatures stopped, as if time and space had stopped. Chu Li and the two women arrived at a courtyard. When Shun Xing saw the situation in the courtyard, her eyes widened and she screamed, "Little brother!" A woman and a young man were lying in the courtyard. The young man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. The two of them were obviously a couple. At this moment, both of them had been stabbed in the chest and were already dead. "Little brother," Shun Xing hissed. She found it hard to believe. His younger brother clearly had his own jade pendant on him. Once there was danger, he would be able to sense it. So why didn't he sense it? She went to the front of the young man and pulled his shirt open. However, she did not find the jade pendant. Her expression changed. No wonder, no wonder. Don't panic. I'll save him, Chu Li said. He did not hurt his soul, so saving him was easy, especially with the power of the life and death scripture. Saving someone who had just been killed was as easy as flipping his hand. He gently pressed on the young man's chest and watched as the sword wound healed quickly. Then, he pressed on the woman beside him. He did not avoid it and directly pressed on the woman's chest, healing the sword wound. The two's faces slowly regained their color. They opened their eyes and saw Shun Xing. They were instantly overjoyed. "Sister," Shun Xing's face darkened. She said coldly, "Brat, you're courting death. Why'd you take off the jade pendant? I clearly told you not to take it off no matter what." "Sister, thank goodness you came." The handsome young man beamed. He got up and pulled Shun Xing's hand. His face was full of joy. Slap! Shun Xing slapped the back of his hand. The handsome young man, Shun Li, chuckled. "Sister, I'm still alive. I can't help it. If Jingru didn't help you, you'd be dead," Shun Xing said hatefully. "You really don't know your limits." Chu Li said, "I'll go for a while." He nodded at Shun Xing and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Then, chakra towers were built one after another. There were a total of 9 towers that surrounded the village. As for the 100 or so middle-aged men who were fixed in place, he did not care about them. After a quarter of an hour, he finished building the 9 towers. He had already stored the floating souls in the towers to strengthen their souls. Then, he began to reverse reincarnation. These souls floated out of the towers and returned to their bodies. They opened their eyes in a daze and quickly became clear-headed. They recalled what they had experienced earlier and knew clearly about entering the chakra tower and being resurrected. When they saw the chakra towers around the mountain peak, they were in awe. Although they did not know when they were built, without these stone towers, they would have died and could not be resurrected. It was truly a reversal of yin and yang. It was extremely magical. "Sister, who was that just now?" Shun Li looked at Shun Xing with a smile. Shun Xing scoffed coldly and looked at the beautiful woman. "Young Qiu, did you encourage him to take off the jade pendant?" Ning Qiu quickly waved her hand. Shun Li said, "Sister, I'm going to cultivate today, and I'll sweat a lot. It's not suitable for me to wear the jade pendant. I'll wear it after I finish cultivating. I've never forgotten. You have to wear it even when you cultivate." Shun Xing scoffed. "Didn't you notice that it doesn't get wet?" "It doesn't get wet, but it's still delicate," Shun Li said. Chu floated over and said softly, "Junior sister, let's get rid of them." Jing Shui nodded and fluttered away with Chu. Shenli looked at their backs and shook his head. "It's over. They're a pair. Sister, you have no chance." Shen Xing said coldly. "Can you shut up?" "Luckily, Jingru saved you this time. You won't be so lucky next time. How about this? Follow me back to the Imperial sect." "I'm not going," Shenli quickly said. "I don't want to be a good-for-nothing." "Sister, just let me stay. It's too dangerous here." Shen Xing frowned. "Aren't you guys here?" "There's no danger now." Shenli smiled. "I'll definitely wear the jade pendant next time." Shen Xing looked at his pleading gaze and softened. She scoffed and did not speak. As a sister, she had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She could not control her little brother. Ning Qiu quickly said, "Sister, we'll be careful. If anything goes wrong, we'll crush the jade pendant." "All right, keep an eye on him." Shen Xing scoffed. "He's reckless and impulsive. He's practically seeking his own death." She pulled the two and floated to Chu Li and Jing Shui's side. She saw that they were staring solemnly at the 100 or so men. The 100 or so men froze on the spot like statues. Shenli pointed at one of them and shouted, "He's the one who killed us." Ning Qiu quickly nodded. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 4037. Shen Xing lightly pressed out with her palm, striking the middle-aged man from afar. The middle-aged man looked ordinary. No one would notice him in a crowd. He was expressionless, like a wooden man. Bang! The middle-aged man flew backwards and spat out a mist of blood. He fell to the ground, motionless, dead. "Good," Shenli applauded. Shen Xing turned to glare at him, extremely dissatisfied. Her younger brother was too disappointing and had no ambition. If it had been someone else, she would have rushed forward to kill. He should be angry that she had done it for him, but he was happy instead. He was like a hedonistic son of a rich family. "Sister Shun, be careful," Jing Shui said. "They are disciples of the Creation sect." "Creation sect?" Shen Xing frowned. The Creation sect had always been mysterious and low-key, but she knew that they were powerful and it was best not to provoke them. Among the 5 sects of Tiannan, 3 sects had disciples who could reincarnate: the Creation sect, Church of Jiuyou, and the Lotus sect. Why did she pick the Lotus sect? It was because they were the easiest to attack, followed by Church of Jiuyou and the Creation sect. However, she did not expect that they would provoke her instead. Of course, she could not back down. No matter how powerful they were not Jingru. They could still fight. Jing Shui said, "Why did the Creation sect want to kill the entire village?" "Because the stronghold has recently obtained a treasure," Shenli said. "What treasure? Tell me." Shen Xing knew his temper. One look, and she knew he wanted to keep them in suspense again. Doing so now was asking for a beating. Even if she did not attack, Jing Shui would not be polite. Shenli laughed. "It's a bracelet. You know where it is?" Shen Xing scoffed. Shenli said, "It should be in the chief's house. He loves it so much that he says it's very ordinary, just an ordinary bracelet. He likes it because it's pretty, but he doesn't like pretty people at all." "Let's go." Shen Xing scoffed. "Let's go take a look." The group of 5 bypassed the 100 people and continued up. They arrived at a large hall and passed through it to a small courtyard at the back. Shenli giggled and said, "Fort Master likes to collect antiques very much and is a knowledgeable person. Since he loves it so much, it must be extraordinary." "Shut up. Hurry up and find it." Shen Xing snorted. After they entered the courtyard, they found a middle-aged man sitting in the gazebo drinking. He paused and put down the silver cup, his hand still on the cup. Shenli glanced at the middle-aged man and said with a smile, "Is Stronghold Master still conscious?" "No." Chu shook his head. "He's unconscious." "That's good. I still want to stay here. I can't offend him." Shenli smiled and said, "Here it is." As he spoke, he reached into the middle-aged man's bosom and took out a black bracelet. It looked like it was made of black iron. It should be a type of strange weapon, right? Shenli picked it up and sized it up. After weighing it in his hands, he exclaimed, "So heavy. Give it to me." Shen Xing snatched it and flipped through it a few times. In the end, she shook her head with a frown and handed it to Jing Xue. Jing Xue smiled and took a look at it before handing it to Chu Li. Chu Li had been observing the bracelet attentively. This bracelet gave him a strange feeling. It was as if it did not exist. If it was not so clear in front of him, he would have doubted its authenticity and whether it was an illusion. Shun Xing snorted. It looks normal. Jing Xue nodded lightly. It looks normal, but it's definitely not normal. But we can't tell what's so special about it. Shun Li said, Is it because it's heavy? Is it sturdy? He took out the long sword from the stone table and slashed at the black bracelet on Chu Li's hand. Ding! The long sword bounced back, almost injuring Shun Li. He jumped in fright, and his expression changed. Shun Xing blushed for him and said coldly, Don't move. Shun Li smiled. I just want to know what kind of treasure it is. Stronghold Master's eyes are very sharp. It's definitely not an ordinary treasure. Chu Li thought about it and reached out his hand. The sword had already landed in his hand and suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never been there. Shun Li turned his head and looked around. He did not find the long sword. This? Shun Li was even more confused and looked at Chu Li. A long sword suddenly appeared in Chu Li's hand. It was the Stronghold Master's long sword. However, this sword was faintly cold and concealed. It was a treasured sword. This little Stronghold Master was so wealthy. He even had a treasured sword like this. Was he someone with a powerful background? He turned to look at Jing Xue. Jing Xue had a good understanding with him. She knew what he was saying with one look. She shook her head. This Stronghold Master is an ordinary martial artist. He's not from a famous sect. Chu Li sighed. There are hidden dragons and snakes in the Great Swamp. There are masters among the people. Other than liking antiques, the Stronghold Master is not a master. Shun Li smiled. This sword is also lucky. I exchanged it with someone else. It was originally a broken sword, but he soaked it in something for a night, and it became like this. His methods are indeed brilliant. Chu Li nodded. Shun Li hurriedly asked, Hero, what kind of treasure is this? Chu Li said, It can be considered a void treasure. It can store the void in a bracelet. It's amazing. It might not be something from this world. A void treasure, Shun Li said. It's called a void bracelet. Void bracelet. That's appropriate. Chu Li smiled. Huh? Shun Li raised his eyebrows at Shun Xing. Shun Xing glared at him coldly and did not say anything. Jing Xue said, How can there be such a treasure? Is there really someone in this world who can solve the mystery of the void? The mystery of the void will definitely be solved. However, I'm afraid it won't be in this world. It might involve heavenly demons. The heavenly demons know the most about the void. He looked at the void bracelet with a heavy expression. Keep it. Shun Xing shook her head. This bracelet is a big problem. The creation sect will not let this go. She looked at Shun Li. After this, the creation sect would come again. Chu Li said, I will go to the creation sect and explain. The skilled are bold. Shun Xing gave him a sidelong glance. Let me tell you, the creation sect is unpredictable. It's better to be careful. I will be careful. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Miss Shun, do you want to come with me? I won't accompany you to death. Shun Xing scoffed. She did not want to be a burden to Chu Li. In a place like the creation sect, an additional burden could be fatal. Jing Xue said, Senior brother, you should go alone. However, you must be careful. I really can't see through the creation sect. Anyone who could not see through them was a powerful person. The entire creation sect was shrouded in a dense fog. However, the creation sect disciples could see it when they left the sect. Chu Li smiled and nodded. He continued to stare at the void bracelet. It was indeed much more convenient with this item. It was a key to unlocking the mystery of the void. With this, it would be easier for him to understand the mystery of the void. If he solved the mystery of the void, would he be able to travel freely between the layers? Would he be able to see Shao Qi and the others? Chapter 4038. As time passed, he missed Shao Qi and the others even more. They were like shadows that could not be erased or cut off. He could not wait to see them tomorrow. He nodded at Jing Shui and Shen Xing, then said to Shun Li, "Don't be careless. The creation sect has come here once, which means that they have their eyes on us. Even without the void bracelet, they will come again." "What should we do?" Shun Li asked. Chu Li said, "The best way is to let Miss Shun stay here." Shun Xing scoffed. "Jingru, you're up to no good. You want me to fight the creation sect, right?" Chu Li said, "Miss Shun can help me deal with these people." "All right." Shen Xing nodded lightly. Her younger brother almost died. She was furious but did not show it. Her murderous intent surged in her. If not for the fact that she was comfortable with Jingru, even if they were enemies, she would still be comfortable and considerate. He clearly knew of her anger and murderous intent and purposely left them for her so that she could vent her anger. As for the creation sect, she had her reservations, but it was not to the point where she would not seek revenge. As long as the reason was justified, she would kill them. She had to pretend to be unwilling to do so to make others think that she had no choice. Jing Shui pursed her lips and laughed. She could see through the scheming between the two of them at a glance, but she felt that Shen Xing was getting more and more excessive, not appreciating the benefits she had received. Chu Li shook his head and smiled at Shen Xing before disappearing. The next moment, he appeared at the foot of the creation sect's mountain. He did not know where the creation sect was, but based on the aura of that group of people, he was able to locate the creation sect. He looked up at the sky. There were dark clouds with faint flashes of lightning, as if the dark clouds were chained up by silver chains. He frowned as he felt the tyrannical power contained in the dark clouds. This power was earth-shattering and was not inferior to the abyss. The power of the golden pool was pure and flawless. He could not feel any pressure as it was gentle and peaceful like spring water. On the other hand, the power of the abyss was like a giant beast ready to devour and destroy at any time. This dark cloud's power was completely different. It was like the power of heaven and earth. No one could survive a single blow. Chu Li shook his head. This was the creation sect, the most mysterious place. Although the 5 sects of Tianan South did not have a ranking, the creation sect was vaguely ranked first. He saw a memorial arch with the words Creation Sect written on it. It shone with a strange golden light under the sunlight. This golden light was different from the usual. It seemed to be black, gold, and white at the same time. When Chu Li stared at it, he felt that it was a flowing light that was constantly changing. A tyrannical force came straight at him, intending to shatter his spirit. Chu Li shook his head. He focused his gaze and unleashed the firmament sword. Bang! A muffled sound resounded in the void. The golden light suddenly brightened and transformed into a golden sword that pierced through the air. Chu Li wielded the firmament sword again. Ding! It was like the sound of metal clashing. The golden sword clashed with the invisible force, producing a sound that sounded like a real sword. Then, it disappeared without a trace. Chu Li knew that he had passed this hurdle. At the same time, he had alerted the creation sect, and they knew that they had come with ill intentions. This was a strange technique. It was both a test and a warning. If a small memorial arch had such power, what more inside the creation sect? Chu Li scoffed and shouted, "Jing Ru of the Lotus Sect greets sect leader Zhou of the creation sect." His voice floated endlessly on the entire peak. Even the dark clouds in the sky seemed to sense it. The lightning on the dark clouds suddenly increased, and the silver chain was 3 to 4 times stronger than before. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "Jingru?" A leisurely voice rang out, echoing in his ears. Chu Li felt that this voice did not belong to a woman. Yes, could it be sect leader Zhou? Chu Li frowned and asked in a low voice. His voice was low, but it still clearly spread throughout the entire creation sect. The disciples of the creation sect all had ugly expressions. His voice could clearly be heard throughout the entire sect, ignoring the sect protection formation. This cultivation level was shocking, and it was clear that he had come with ill intentions. "I am Chong Luo, the right guardian of the creation sect." The man's voice floated over. He said calmly, Sect leader Zhou does not need to personally deal with trivial matters. Chu Li said, I wonder if sect leader Zhou needs to personally examine this bracelet. As he spoke, he flashed the void bracelet on his wrist. Huh? Chang Luo was surprised. He asked calmly, where did this bracelet come from? Chu Li said, I obtained it from a mountain stronghold. I did not expect such an ordinary mountain stronghold to have such a mystical item. Coincidentally, I came across a group of cold-blooded people slaughtering the stronghold. So, I saved the stronghold and obtained the bracelet. What about that group of people? Chang Luo asked in a low voice. Chu Li said, they've already been killed. Such inhumane people will only bring harm to the world if they live. It's better for them to reincarnate as soon as possible. Dead. Chang Luo muttered to himself. Chu Li smiled. Could it be that Guardian Chang knows these inhumane people? He. Chang Luo suddenly chuckled. He knew that Chu Li wanted to force him to deny it, but as the right guardian of the creation sect, why did he have to listen to him? Why did he have to be coerced? Chu Li said, it seems that you do know them. Could it be a disciple of the creation sect? I don't think so. Their methods are cold and cruel, not even sparing a 3-year-old child. They are truly inhumane. How could they be a disciple of a large sect like the creation sect? What you see may not be the truth. Chang Luo said plainly. Jing Ru, hand over the bracelet. It seems that they really are disciples of the creation sect. Chu Li said in a low voice. The creation sect despicable behavior is beyond imagination. Chang Luo said, if you don't hand it over, we will have to offend you. Chu Li smiled. Even if you hand it over, you will still have to make a move, right? You want to avenge the disciples of the creation sect, right? Jing Ru, you are a smart person. Chang Luo chuckled. Following the laughter, a figure appeared in front of Chu Li. It was a handsome young man with jade-like features. He looked like he had just reached adulthood and was the youngest. He did not look like a respected guardian, but more like a disciple who had just entered the sect. He knew that the more one practiced the martial arts of the creation sect, the younger one would become. When they first started practicing, they would become older. Once they reached the next level, they would become younger. Chu Li looked at him calmly. I just want to see sect leader Zhou. The sect leader is in isolation and cannot meet you. Chang Luo said, we are enough to deal with you. He waved his hand as he finished speaking. 16 young men appeared out of thin air, holding wooden swords in their hands. They surrounded Chu Li as if they wanted to toy with him. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the 16 young men. It seemed that the creation sect knew him well enough to send their most powerful masters. Since they knew him so well, they still dared to let these people fight. It was obvious that they were confident of winning. Kill him, Chang Luo said quietly. The 16 young men pointed their swords at the sky. Suddenly, 16 bolts of lightning landed on the tip of the swords. The swords were wrapped in silver light, like a silver snake coiling around them. Chi! The 16 swords stabbed out at the same time. The void seemed to freeze. Chu Li originally wanted to use his body movement technique, but was forced to stop. Ding, 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 ding. Amidst the concentrated sounds of metal clashing, Chu Li's 10 fingers lightly played as if he was playing the strings of a zither. The 16 wooden swords flashing with silver light flew out and turned into ashes in the air. Chu Li's face darkened. The 16 rays of silver light had already drilled into his body and were about to destroy it. Even his soul would be burned and destroyed. P.S. Update complete. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 4039. These 16 swords were condensed and strange. They had the ability to destroy souls. If they attacked the Lotus Sect disciples, they would die without a doubt. It was impossible for them to reincarnate. The creation sect's strength was astonishing. The Lotus Sect and the Zenith Royal Sect might only have 1 or 2 masters of this level, but the creation sect had 16 of them. Clearly, these 16 were not the top masters. Swoosh! 16 silvery lights suddenly appeared in the air, like 16 silver longswords. The 16 youths caught them and swung them at Chu Li. Chu Li could feel the destructive power. He did not dare to take it head-on. His figure flickered a few times. He could not use God's limbs. The air around him seemed to be locked by an invisible force. He faintly felt that the locking force came from the dark cloud. He could only use his inner energy to activate his body movement technique to avoid the 16 silver swords. The bodies of the 16 youths shot out silver lights and merged with the silver swords. They suddenly sped up and caught up to him. Chu Li threw a light punch. A strange vibration sounded. The air trembled. The 16 youths seemed to be unable to support their bodies. The direction of their silver swords changed. Chu Li was so close that he was not pierced by the silver swords. A silver sword scattered in the air, turning into a silver light that merged with the void and disappeared. The youth holding the silver sword also disappeared. The 15 youths looked at each other, feeling the gravity of the situation. The source of their strength came from the creation pool. If they left the creation sect, their strength would be reduced to 70 to 60%. They would not be a threat to Chu Li. But in the creation sect, with the power of the creation pool, they were no different from gods. Even if an enlightened master came, they would not be afraid. This was why the creation sect was so confident. They kept a low profile and did not want to compete with the other 4 sects in Tian'an. But now, someone had killed their companions in the creation sect. Although their companions could be reincarnated in the creation pool, it was still a head-on attack. This was not something even an enlightened master could do. Chu Li did not directly destroy their souls. He had not reached that level yet. Swoosh! With a light whistle, the 15 youths sped up again, faster than they could react. Chu Li had already predicted their movements, so he took a step back and dodged their silver swords just in time. He then took another step forward and lightly punched the tip of a silver sword. Ding! With a clear ring, the silver sword and the youth collapsed together, turning into a silver light that disappeared into the void. Chu Li shook his head and said, "Guardian Chong, forget it. Good skills." Chong Luo frowned and said in a low voice, "What exactly do you want?" Chu Li replied, "That's all there is to meet sect leader Zhou. It looks like I'll have to beat you up until you're in pain before you can meet sect leader Zhou." He wanted to know if Zhou Qinglan was the person he was looking for. After entering the creation sect, his instincts had become less acute. It was very difficult for him to determine whether or not Zhou Qinglan was the one he was looking for. It might be, but it might not be. He was really confused. Ever since he mastered the scripture of the great wisdom source, he always had the pearl of wisdom in his hands. No matter how difficult or dangerous the situation was, he was always calm. "Impossible," Chong Luo snorted. The more Jing Ru wanted to see the sect master, the more he couldn't let her have her way. With her cultivation, it would be a disaster if she wanted to harm the sect master. The sect master was not someone with amazing martial arts. Instead, he did not know martial arts. This was a great mystery that the whole world didn't know. Most people would not be able to see the sect master's depth when they saw him, but Jing Ru's profound cultivation level might not be able to hide it. Chu Li scoffed and said, "Stopping me like this, could it be that there's something shameful? Has your sect master been harmed?" "Ha!" Chong Luo laughed loudly. This was the most ridiculous joke. Who in the creation sect could bear to harm the sect master? They could not even bear to say a word of disrespect to the sect master. Chu Li frowned and said, "Or is it that your sect master's cultivation has gone astray and his martial arts has been crippled?" "Huh!" Chong Luo laughed again. This time, his smile was a little unnatural. He tried his best to hide it, trying to act normal, but he could not hide it from Chu Li. No matter how subtle his expression was, it could not hide from Chu Li's eyes. His gaze froze, and he looked at Chong Luo in surprise. Chong Luo shouted, "Kill him with all your might." "Yes." The 14 youths looked at each other and nodded lightly. Chu Li frowned and said, "There's no need to die together." Chong Luo's expression changed slightly, and he shouted, "You can see through people's minds?" Chu Li said, "I just know a thing or two. Looking at your expressions, who doesn't know that you're about to use your ultimate move? And in the creation sect, with the creation pool, Your ultimate move is nothing more than a mysterious technique that destroys indiscriminately. Am I right? Chang Luo secretly let out a sigh of relief, but his expression was solemn. He said in a low voice, "You're so smart, but be careful that you don't die young." Chu Li laughed and said, "Looks like I've guessed correctly. Do it." Chang Luo decided not to waste any more words with Chu Li. Otherwise, Chu Li would be able to see through him, and that would be a big problem. His murderous intent was burning, and his eyes were burning. The 14 youths saw his murderous intent and nodded silently. They had already ignited themselves, and instantly, the silver light in their hands was so dazzling that no one could look at it directly. The light on their bodies became dimmer and dimmer, like candles that were about to be extinguished. Finally, they were completely extinguished and merged into the silver swords. Chu Li's expression was solemn, and he shouted, "They've really gone mad." Hum! The entire void trembled again. This time, his body trembled as he could not control himself. Then, he watched as the 14 silver swords pierced towards him. Chang Luo let out a smile. No one could escape from this sword, and it was impossible for them to survive. This Jing Ru was a powerful person, but unfortunately, she came here to provoke him and brought about her own destruction. Chu Li could not blame her. The smile on his face suddenly became solemn, and his expression became gloomy. The silver light dissipated, and Chu Li's figure was revealed. Chu Li's expression was also extremely gloomy. He stared at Chang Luo and shouted, "What a creation sect! How did you survive?" Chang Luo said in a low voice. This was what he wanted to know the most. Chu Li laughed coldly. "Again? Let's see if you have more masters like him. If not, then it's my turn." He took a step forward and stood in front of Chang Luo, lightly throwing a punch. Chang Luo knew that this punch was powerful and could not take it head-on. He took a step to the side to avoid it, and, at the same time, he used his palm as a sword and slashed towards Chu Li's left rib. Chu Li's punch seemed to be slow and relaxed, but it accurately hit his palm. Poof, 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 poof. The sound of pebbles being thrown into a deep well was heard. Chang Luo suddenly stiffened, and his body quickly became shorter. He slowly slid to the ground and turned into a pile of mud. He stared at Chu Li in disbelief. No matter how weak his body was, his mind was still clear and his head was fine. Chu Li shook his head and said, "There's no harm in telling you. It's all thanks to this void bracelet." He flashed the black bracelet on his wrist and smiled. "You guys spent so much effort to snatch it. It is indeed a treasure." "What martial art is this?" Chang Luo shouted. Chu Li said, "Giant Spirit Fist." "Giant Spirit Fist." Chang Luo frowned and laughed strangely. "I've never heard of it. It's not the martial art of your Lotus sect, nor is it the martial art of the 5 sects of Tiannan." Chu Li said lightly, "It was a fortuitous encounter. Can I see your sect leader Zhou now?" "Even if you kill me, it's still impossible." Chang Luo scoffed. Chu Li frowned. "Do you really think I don't dare to kill you?" 2K Reading Network. Chapter 4040. Then let's see. Chang Luo smiled. "To die for the sect leader, I have no regrets." Chu Li frowned and stared at him. Chang Luo was indeed sincere, without any hypocrisy. As the right guardian, with such a high position, most people did not respect the sect leader. After all, distance made the heart grow fonder. But Chang Luo, as the right guardian, still respected the sect leader. This was strange. It seemed that Zhou Qinglan's personal charm was amazing. Chang Luo said, "Come, kill me." Chu Li frowned. "I came to find your sect leader, Zhou, not to fight or kill. I have something to ask." "Huh?" Chang Luo sneered. His body had turned into a pile of soft mud. His flesh and bones were crushed. The pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. But he did not dare to show any expression, not distracted by the pain. Chu Li was somewhat impressed. "It seems that you don't believe me. Then there's no harm in telling you." "Speak," Chang Luo said. Chu Li said, "It's about the heavenly demon." "Heavenly demon?" Chang Luo frowned. "How do you know about the heavenly demon?" Chu Li scoffed. The heavenly demon has already invaded this world. It will be the heavenly demon's world in the future. If we don't prepare, we will die without a burial place. Chong Luo shook his head and laughed. You know about the heavenly demon too, how rare. Chu Li said, since you know about the heavenly demon, you must know how terrifying they are. Why are you still indifferent? Chong Luo smiled. The heavenly demon is a thing of legend, far beyond our reach. Although the sect leader once prophesied to be careful of the heavenly demon, it's just a small chance. Chu Li said, it seems that sect leader Zhou is really unfathomable to be able to predict the arrival of the heavenly demon. Of course, the sect leader is like a god, surpassing the gods. As for the heavenly demon, with our sect leader around, there's nothing to worry about. Chong Luo scoffed. Chu Li laughed. How arrogant. Didn't your sect leader go astray, and his martial arts were crippled? Chong Luo said coldly. Don't try to lie to me. Sect leader doesn't care if he goes astray or not. He has a clear understanding of the world. Chu Li said, how about this? Invite the sect leader over to meet me. I could be 300 feet away, or even 1,000 feet away. If it was before, I might have considered it, but now... Chong Luo sneered. You can restrain the void lock. The void of the creation sect had always been locked. No one could shift through the void, so no matter how strong their Qigong was, it was limited. But now, things are different. He had the void bracelet, and could actually break through the void lock and use void transference. This was a huge threat, and he couldn't meet the sect master. Chu Li said in a low voice, Guardian Chong, if you continue to be so stubborn, don't blame me for using force. I'll destroy your creation sect in one go and see if sect leader Zhou will come out. Sigh. A long, drawn-out sigh suddenly rang out. It traveled into Chu Li's ears and went straight into his heart. It even echoed in his mind. Chu Li's expression changed slightly. This was not because he had lost all his martial arts. The owner of this voice was stronger than him. Could it be that it was not Zhou Qinglan, but an even stronger master from the creation sect? Sovereign! Chong Luo shouted. A silver light suddenly broke through the air and landed on Chong Luo. Chong Luo's body shone brightly, and the silver light burst forth dazzlingly. Chu Li frowned. It really was Zhou Qinglan. He had originally thought that with his cultivation level, it was enough to compete with Zhou Qinglan. He did not expect her to be even stronger. Chu Li turned to look at Chong Luo. The silver light slowly faded, and Chong Luo's figure finally appeared. He was already floating in the air, standing quietly. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. He slowly descended and smiled calmly at Chu Li. Thank you, Sovereign. Chu Li turned his head abruptly, but there was nothing behind him. He did not even feel anything. Chong Luo smiled. Chu Li's face darkened. He knew that Zhou Qinglan must be behind him, but he could not detect her. He had not experienced this in a long time. Chong Luo chuckled. Sovereign, why tease him like this? Chu Li said coldly. Sovereign Zhou, is this how the creation sect treats its guests? Feeling this humiliation, he was inexplicably conflicted. Sigh, you killed my creation sect disciples and broken my mountain. A faint sigh resounded from the bottom of his heart. Hearing this voice, he felt her fragility and melancholy. He felt an inexplicable sense of pity. Chu Li frowned. Just this alone was not enough to make Chong Luo worship him. He needed a deeper charm. He was becoming more curious about Zhou Qinglan. Chu Li said in a low voice, the creation sect has some demonic characteristics. They are cold-blooded and ruthless, killing people like slaughtering chickens. Even women and children are not spared. Chong Luo shouted. The sovereign did not know about this. I acted on my own. Jingru, don't accuse the sovereign unjustly. Chu Li chuckled. Chong Luo's face darkened. He glared at him. What are you laughing at? Chu Li shook his head. As the sovereign, you did not know about such a big matter. Those people were your creation sect's sacrificial warriors, right? The sovereign was in isolation. Of course he did not know. Chong Luo shouted. But I have a clear conscience. This void bracelet was originally ours. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Chong Luo sneered. That floating cloud stronghold dare to rob us of our treasures. They really deserve to die. They deserve 10,000 deaths. Chu Li frowned. Those babies are not guilty. They can only blame themselves for being the children of sinners. This is how the world works. Chong Luo scoffed. Is there any fairness? They are destined to be enemies of our creation sect. Are we going to let them grow up and cause trouble for us? Your Lotus sect is known as an orthodox sect. You are kind and benevolent. You would not do such a thing, right? Chu Li shook his head. Our Lotus sect will not do such a thing. Even if they grow up and come for revenge, they will not do such a thing. Huh? Chong Luo sneered. He obviously did not believe him. Chu Li said, our Lotus sect has a bottom line of human nature. Without this bottom line, even if your martial arts are strong, what use is it? What a joke. Chong Luo shook his head. Sovereign, it is better to kill him. He dares to come here and talk nonsense. Sigh, what he said makes sense. A faint sigh sounded again. Guardian Chong, this time you are wrong. Yes, Sovereign. Chong Luo nodded respectfully. Zhou Qinglan said softly, since you are wrong, then your punishment is to be relieved of your position as a guardian. Become a normal disciple again. Yes. Chong Luo did not hesitate. Chu Li frowned and stared at Chong Luo. He wanted to know what Chong Luo was thinking and whether he really had no complaints. However, Chong Luo's expression showed that he was willing and unconvinced. He carefully observed Chong Luo's every expression. It could only be said that he was stubborn and unrepentant. There was no cure. Jing Ru, now it is time to talk about our matter. Zhou Qinglan said. Why are you looking for me? Chu Li said, does Sovereign Zhou know about the heavenly demon? The heavenly demon is not our business. Is the enlightened master's concern. Zhou Qinglan said. The human heart is not as scary as the heavenly demon. Chu Li frowned. Sovereign Zhou is wrong. The heavenly demon is beyond imagination. The heavenly demon was originally a human. Zhou Qinglan said. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 4041. The heavenly demon is human, but also not human. Chu Li shook his head. Just like Buddha is human, but also not human, you can't generalize them. What do you have in mind? Zhou Qinglan's voice was nonchalant. Chu Li said, I think most of the heavenly demons come from the 5 sects. Oh. Zhou Qinglan was still nonchalant. Chu Li frowned. Does sect leader Zhou know? It's nothing surprising. Zhou Qinglan said, the 5 sects have the highest requirements for their disciples. If you want to become a heavenly demon, you can't do it without sufficient qualifications. Chu Li said, then does sect leader Zhou have any way to restrain it? Are we just going to let the heavenly demons wreak havoc and increase in numbers? We can't defeat the heavenly demons, Zhou Qinglan said. Chu Li scoffed. That's not something a sect leader should say, right? You know about the heavenly demons, so I won't lie to you. Zhou Qinglan's voice was heard. As they talked, Chu Li felt like he was talking to an old friend. There was no sense of unfamiliarity or hostility. Chu Li said, Sect leader Zhou, I have a way to destroy the heavenly demons. Hee hee. Light laughter was heard. Chu Li's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. His soul actually shook. He was shocked. This was a type of charm technique. He would never believe that a woman's charm could reach this level. It must be a combination of secret techniques and talent. Her charm technique had reached the formless realm. It must have been cultivated to the highest level and was impossible to guard against. He suddenly realized why Chong Luo worshipped her so much. It was caused by the charm technique. Zhou Qinglan said, From what I know, human martial arts cannot kill the heavenly demons, just like how human martial arts cannot kill Buddha. Chu Li shook his head. It's a martial art that I obtained through a fortuitous encounter. It's not a human martial art from this world. Oh, I see. Zhou Qinglan said faintly. Chu Li felt a sense of ecstasy and was secretly impressed by the power of her charm technique. He became even more cautious. The more easily she could seduce someone, the more it showed that her heart was cold and ruthless. From the first heaven until here, he had seen too many charm techniques. If a woman who practiced seduction didn't have an ice-cold heart, it would be extremely difficult for her to succeed. Moreover, the moment her heart was moved was the moment she would break through. On the other hand, women who practiced seduction techniques would almost never be tempted. They could see through people's hearts and knew how sinister and ugly they were. When they looked at others, it was like they were looking at an ugly bug. How could they be tempted? Chuli asked, "Sect leader Zhou, are you still not going to meet me? Let's forget about it this time." Zhou Qinglan said, "It's really not convenient for me to see you. Next time, come back in a month. By then, my martial arts will have mostly recovered." Chuli replied coldly. Sect leader Zhou. He felt that Zhou Qinglan was playing with people's hearts. With her current ability to be silent, how could she be afraid of a sneak attack? That's all. Goodbye. Zhou Qinglan's voice gradually faded into the distance. Chuli suddenly felt his body lighten. Then, the scenery in front of him changed, and he found himself at the foot of the mountain. He had been transported through the void. Chuli's face darkened. He lifted his head and stared intently at the creation sect. This time, he had suffered a great setback. His original arrogance had dissipated, and he had to continue working hard. Chuli turned around and strode away. Chang Luo hurriedly said, "Sect leader, are you letting him go just like that?" His face was full of unwillingness. This Jing Ru was a scourge. His martial arts was too strong, and he had a deep enmity towards the creation sect. Many creation sect disciples would die in his hands. If Chang Luo was the sect leader, he would definitely think of a way to kill him. "I won't be able to keep him." A faint voice rang out. "My martial arts have not been perfected. Let's keep him for a while." "Yes, sect leader." Chang Luo hurriedly nodded. "It's my fault for disturbing the sect leader. I didn't expect him to be so difficult to deal with." Zhou Qinglan said, "How could I not know after such a big commotion? Ask around for news about him." "Yes." Chang Luo hurriedly said, "Sect leader, what about the void bracelet?" "The void bracelet is very important to me." Zhou Qinglan lightly said, "Song Jun is useless. He actually lost it. He really deserves to die." Chang Luo fiercely nodded. "He really is a mediocre person. We must punish him properly. There's nothing wrong with his mentality. It's just that he's useless, so we can't punish him too much." Zhou Qinglan said, "Just demote him by 1 level." Sect leader Chang Luo felt that something was wrong. Song Jun had committed such a grave mistake, yet he was only punished by 1 level. It was really a light punishment, too lenient. If this went on, what would happen if the disciples did not do their best? Those who do their best, even if they messed up, can be forgiven, but not heavily punished. Zhou Qinglan softly said, "And those who do not do their best, even if it's a small mistake, will be heavily punished." "I understand." Chang Luo nodded vigorously. This was what he most admired about the sect leader. Everything had to be done from the heart. If the heart was not upright, even if it was a small mistake, it would still be heavily punished. If the heart was upright, even if it was a big mistake, it would not be heavily punished. This was very difficult to achieve. After all, the human heart was hard to fathom, and the human heart was separated by a layer of skin. However, the sect leader was amazing because he could see through the human heart. All the disciples in the sect were in awe and obediently accepted their punishment. "Sect leader, do you want to use some means to snatch the void bracelet back?" Chang Luo asked. "You won't be able to snatch it back. He's too strong." Zhou Qinglan said softly, "It's better for me to do it myself. You just have to find out about him." "Yes," Chang Luo said, "I will send all the disciples to find out everything about him, including what he eats every day. Go." Zhou Qinglan said, "Tomorrow, you will no longer be a guardian. Make arrangements today. You will be punished for a year." "Yes." Chang Luo closed fists saluted, turned around, and left in high spirits. Chuli had already returned to his courtyard. Jingxue had returned long ago. Seeing him return, she could not help but sigh in relief. She felt that the creation sect could not kill him, but she was still worried. However, seeing his calm expression, It was obvious that he had something on his mind, so she sat opposite him. Chu Li shook his head. I underestimated the creation sect. Their strength is shocking. No matter how strong they can't be stronger than the enlightened master clan, right? Jing Xue said. Chu Li smiled. That's true. He took a deep breath. The key is that Zhou Qinglan. She is unfathomable. I am no match for her. No way. Jing Xue was completely shocked. In her opinion, no one in the world was stronger than his martial arts. He was already unimaginably strong, not to mention the miraculous azure, Cloud, divine sword. Chu Li shook his head. Her martial arts is very strange, and even more terrifying. Once the charm technique was mastered, it could stir up the world and was far more terrifying than martial arts. Since ancient times, seduction had always been successful. Jing Xue asked, Senior brother, do you have any ideas? Chu Li shook his head. I'm not afraid, but I'm afraid that others are no match for her. She can manipulate people's hearts, and she has always been successful. Jing Xue pondered. Then let the disciples cultivate something that can calm their minds. Chu Li said, it's useless. Ordinary charm techniques were feasible, but he was determined. Even with the Great Light Buddha and Mahavairokkana Buddha suppressing his mind, he was still slightly tempted. Chapter 4042. Jing Xue thought about it and smiled. Actually, you don't need to worry about this, senior brother. The enlightened masters should be more concerned. Chu Li shook his head. What does this have to do with the enlightened masters? Jing Xue said, if you run into trouble and cannot focus on dealing with heavenly demons, the enlightened masters will suffer losses. Chu Li frowned. We can't let the enlightened masters help us all the time. He was now in the same boat with the enlightened masters. If he ran into trouble, the enlightened masters would worry. On the other hand, he did not need to care when the enlightened masters were in trouble. This put the humans in an advantageous position. That's true, Jing Xue said, but the enlightened masters have so many secret techniques. It shouldn't be hard for them to find one that can restrain them, right? Chu Li shook his head. Never mind, I'll do it myself. I should go into seclusion again. Meeting Zhou Qinglan this time had been a huge blow to him. He was not invincible. He needed to cultivate harder, or someone would catch up to him sooner or later. Moreover, he might not be Zhou Qinglan's match now. Even if he could beat her, he would be at a disadvantage against her. He would be restrained. Jing Xue nodded. Senior brother, it's better to go into seclusion so that you don't have to worry about mundane matters. It's not worth mentioning to you. Chu Li smiled. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Chu Li waved his hand, and the courtyard door opened. Su Xin floated in lightly. The lotus seat carried her to the two Masters Jr. Chu Li and Jing Xue closed fists saluted. Su Xin waved her hand, bringing with her a faint fragrance. She sighed. There's trouble again. Jing Xue looked at the exquisite invitation in her hand and said in surprise, did someone with ill intentions come to visit? More or less. Su Xin flicked her finger. The exquisite invitation floated to Chu Li. Chu Li took it and scanned it. He frowned. An invitation to a banquet. The Imperial School, one of the 5 sects of Tiannan. He handed it to Jing Xue. Jing Xue took it and read it carefully. She nodded. There's a forceful tone in the words. It seems certain that we will go, and there's an order. Masters Jr. Has the Imperial School always been so overbearing? Yes. Su Xin nodded. Of the 5 sects of Tiannan, the Imperial School is first. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. He knew of the 5 sects of Tiannan, but he did not know that the Creation sect was said to be the #1 sect in the Imperial territory. Su Xin said, 100 years ago, Yuji Gate suddenly announced its closure. All the disciples returned to the mountain gate and didn't come out for 100 years. Could it be to hide from Empyrean gods? Jing Xue snorted and said, to avoid the limelight. No. She then shook her head lightly. They should know that when the nest is overturned, there will be no unbroken eggs. Could it be that there is internal strife? Neither, Su Xin said. Chu Li pondered. Could it be that they discovered some kind of secret skill, So all the disciples in the gate cultivated it together, and after increasing their strength, they now have the strength to unify the 5 sects of Tian'an South. Exactly. Su Xn slowly nodded, her expression solemn. Actually, the Imperial Extreme sect has always had the idea of unifying the 5 sects of South Heaven. Are they that strong? Jing Xue asked. Perhaps they were once glorious and unified the 5 sects. No. Su Xian shook her head lightly. The Imperial Extreme School has always been the strongest. Everyone knows that their dream is to unify the 5 sects and conquer the world. Unfortunately, the spirit is willing, but the strength is insufficient. Chu Li smiled and said, but they suddenly obtained an extraordinary secret skill. They were afraid that the news would leak, so they closed their doors and cultivated for 100 years. After their strength greatly increased, they wanted to fulfill their long-cherished wish. Su Xian said, that is what we speculated. Jing Xue laughed softly and said, unfortunately, they do not know that times change. Nothing stays the same. The 5 sects of South Heaven are no longer the 5 sects of South Heaven. No matter what, the Imperial Extreme School strength is extremely strong. Su Xian frowned and said, but they closed their doors for 100 years, causing the other 4 sects to have a lot of complaints. Back then, when the enlightened gods revolted, it was always the 4 sects that held the fort. Then, should we send someone to attend the banquet? Jing Xue asked. Su Xian shook her head lightly. The sect leader has decided not to send anyone. The Lotus sect is not a subordinate of the Imperial Extreme School. There is no need to listen to their orders. That's right. Jing Xue scoffed and said, do we have to go just because they tell us to? It's too arrogant of them to send such an invitation. They don't take us seriously at all. With the Imperial Extreme School's temper, they will definitely revolt. Su Xian said, so, trouble will come knocking. Jing Xue, you have to be on guard. We have to let senior brother make a move? Jing Xue asked. Su Xian said, Jing Xue, your reputation is getting bigger and bigger. All the sects know that if they want to defeat the Lotus sect, they must first defeat you, Jing Xue. So, they will find senior brother, kill senior brother to establish their prestige, and even kill for the other 3 sects to see, for all the sects in the martial arts world to see. Right? Jing Xue's jade face unknowingly turned cold, and her voice was chilly. Su Xian nodded and said, there is an 80% chance that they will do so. Chu Li smiled and said, then, it will depend on each person's ability. It seems that the mystical technique they cultivate is no small matter. I would like to see it for myself. Su Xian shook her head and said, according to our understanding of the Imperial Extreme School, they will definitely use us against them. They want to use us to establish their prestige. Why don't we do the same? Chu Li smiled and said, if we can suppress the Imperial Extreme School, the Lotus sect can save a lot of trouble from now on. That's true. Su Xian smiled and said, it's best that you think this way. Jing Xue, you're going to be busy again. Jing Xue's mind illumination could predict misfortune. In front of people, it was the most powerful weapon outside of martial arts. If she joined hands with Chu Li, the Lotus sect disciples would be absolutely safe. With the 2 of them here, the Lotus sect disciples were full of confidence. In the next 10 days, Chu Li kept thinking about how to get in touch with Zhou Qinglan and figure out her charm technique and light body technique again. Unfortunately, Zhou Qinglan would not give him such a chance. However, the matter of the Imperial Extreme School could be used. This morning, it was already far past the time stated on the invitation, but the Imperial Extreme School still had no reaction. It was as if they did not go and did not care. Chu Li simply did not think about it. The next moment, he arrived at God of Heaven Mountain and directly entered the Sutra Tower. He began to flip through the books and immersed himself in the sea of books and wisdom. The collection of books in the Sutra Tower was too rich. Even with Chu Li's reading speed, reading books as if flipping through books, it would still take a long time to finish reading all of these books. Not only did he not feel fear, but he was also extremely excited. It was as if a sumptuous feast was placed in front of him when he was extremely hungry. There were hundreds of feasts. Those who were not hungry would only be frightened when they saw it, feeling that they could not bear it. However, those who were extremely hungry would feel delighted and extremely happy. In one breath, he stayed in the Sutra Tower for 10 days. In the early morning of this day, he suddenly felt something strange, so he returned to his own courtyard in the Lotus Sect in a flash. Jingxue was waiting there. She wore a snow-white gown and had a graceful bearing. She was like a blooming lotus, quietly swaying in the wind with a radiant appearance. When Chuli appeared, she came to greet him and said softly, "Senior brother, people from the Imperial Extreme School have come." They finally came. Chuli smiled and said, "How is it?" They came to question and punish. Jingxue shook her head lightly. Chuli frowned. Punishment? Who do they think they are in the Lotus Sect? Those who do not follow their orders will be punished. Jingxue said, "They said that this is the rule of the Imperial Extreme School. Then what about the rules of our Lotus Sect?" Chuli smiled, and a lotus seat condensed under his feet, carrying him out of the courtyard. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 4043. The two arrived in front of a large hall. It was a spacious square. At this moment, there were 3 men in black clothes standing in the square. 2 young men were guarding a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had handsome eyebrows and bright eyes. 3 strands of beard floated below his chin. His temperament was clear and distant like an immortal, untainted by worldly affairs. Opposite him was Su Exan, who was quietly looking at the 3 people in front of her. The handsome middle-aged man stroked his beard and said indifferently, "Lady Su Exan, the Lotus Flower Sect is not what it used to be. It is already famous in the world and is faintly the #1 sect among the 5 sects in South Heaven. Hero Su is too polite," Su Exan said indifferently. "Our Lotus Flower Sect is still the Lotus Flower Sect of the past. How can our strength suddenly increase so much? It's not like your Imperial Extreme School is blessed with great luck and obtained a mysterious technique to cultivate in seclusion." "Huh?" The handsome middle-aged man, Su Zhengxing, laughed loudly and said clearly, "The Lotus Flower Sect is still so well-informed. I won't hide it from Lady Su Exan. Our Imperial Extreme School has indeed cultivated a new secret technique." "What secret technique is it?" Su Exan smiled elegantly. The Lotus Flower Sect's strength had indeed increased greatly. Especially after obtaining those snow silver flowers, their overall strength had rapidly increased by a large margin, far surpassing the past. This was the peak of the Lotus Flower Sect. In addition, with Jingru, Jingxue, and the other top experts, they truly had nothing to fear. Thus, they were very confident in facing the Imperial Extreme School. Su Jingxing's hand that was stroking his beard paused, and he frowned slightly. According to his prediction, Su Exan should be very serious and curious when she heard the news that the Imperial Extreme School had cultivated in seclusion for 100 years and cultivated a secret technique. But looking at Su Exan's attitude, there was no seriousness or curiosity at all. It was as if it was an ordinary matter. This attitude showed that the Lotus Flower Sect was very confident, even to the point of arrogance. They felt that no matter what secret technique the Imperial Extreme School cultivated, they would not be able to pose a threat. This made Su Zhengxing extremely dissatisfied. Among the 5 sects in South Heaven, the Imperial Extreme School was #1. This had always been the tradition. It was not some bullshit creation sect or the newly rising Lotus Flower Sect. People were too forgetful. In just 100 years, people had already forgotten the glory of the Imperial Extreme School and their reverence for the Imperial Extreme School. As one of the Imperial Extreme School's 5-element guard, he could not maintain the dignity of the Imperial Extreme School. Today was the first step of establishing his authority. Thinking of this, he shouted in a deep voice, "Pure Een Saber." Seeing that Su Exan was still looking at him indifferently, Su Zhengxing said coldly, "Miss Su Exan, you haven't heard of the Pure Een Saber, right?" "I've never heard of it. It must be a powerful secret technique." Su Exan nodded. She was dressed in a bluish-white gown that fluttered in the wind. It was as if she could fly away with the wind at any time and float into the sky. She did not look like a human being, although Su Zhengxing, who was sitting opposite her, was a little older. His temperament was clear and distant. When the two of them stood together, they were like a pair of immortals talking, not tainted by vulgarity. However, their words were not so peaceful. Su Xin showed her disdain without any hesitation. She wanted to suppress the arrogance of the extreme defense school. The 5 sects of the South Heaven sect were disgusted with the Imperial Extreme School. However, they were previously intimidated by the might of the Imperial Extreme School, so they could only forcefully endure their unhappiness. Later on, when the deities invaded, the Imperial Extreme sect instead shut themselves up and refused to come out. Not only did they not contribute, they even retreated. They had already seriously lost the hearts of the people of the martial arts world in Heavenly South, and they felt disdain towards them. In addition, under the oppression of the deities, the other 4 sects of the South Heaven sect had their strength increased by leaps and bounds. They were no longer the 4 sects of the South Heaven sect of the past, and the Imperial Extreme School even came out to act like the leader. Su Zhengxing's expression was gloomy, and he said slowly, "Pure Een Blade, slaying 3 souls." Su Xian frowned and said, 3 souls? Directly killing souls? That's right, Su Zhengxing said in a deep voice. Back then, Su Jinyang, one of the 5 elemental guards, obtained this secret technique and immediately offered it to the sect, allowing everyone to quickly comprehend it. This is a mystical technique that can restrain the deities. Deities? Su Xian shook her head and said, Hero Su, the situation of the world is different from before. The deities are no longer enemies of us humans. Su Zhengxing laughed and said, How can wolves not eat sheep? Even if they don't eat it now, they will eat it in the future. Then what does the Imperial Extreme School want to do? Su Xian said. Su Zhengxing said, Lead the 5 sects of the South Heaven sect and chase the deities out of this world. We humans will have a bright world. Then let the Imperial Extreme School become the supreme and rule over all the sects in the world. Su Xin smiled faintly, and the corners of her mouth curled up to reveal a hint of mockery. Su Zhengxing said in a deep voice, Chasing away the deities is such a great achievement. Can it convince the masses? Do the sects still have any questions? Su Xian said, The masses will not fight against the deities with the Imperial Extreme School, nor will we listen to the orders of the Imperial Extreme School. The world now is not the world of the past. The Imperial Extreme School should also wake up and stop dreaming. Hero Su. Her expression was calm, her voice was gentle, and her attitude was sincere. Every word she said was sincere, and there was not a trace of mockery in her tone. Su Zhengxing's expression was gloomy, and he shouted in a deep voice, The world changed in 100 years? The Imperial Extreme School used to be the #1 sect in the South Heaven sect, and it is still the #1 sect in the South Heaven sect now. Su Xian shook her head lightly and said, Hero Su, the #1 sect in the South Heaven sect now is the Creation sect. Not the Lotus sect. Su Zhengxing sneered. Su Xian shook her head seriously. Our Lotus sect has made great progress, but the sects in the South Heaven sect have all advanced by leaps and bounds. The true #1 sect is still the Creation sect. Miss Su Xian, you're really modest. I really admire you, Su Zhengxing said in a deep voice. However, the Lotus sect doesn't listen to orders, so don't blame us for being ruthless. Hero Su, the Lotus sect is not the subordinate of the Imperial Extreme School. Why should we listen to your orders? Su Xian said calmly. This is the Imperial Extreme School's unreasonable provocation. Forgive me for not playing along. Whether it's unreasonable or not still depends on the strength. Su Zhengxing said proudly. Then show us our moon plane blade. He turned his head and glanced at the 2 young men. The 2 young men nodded slowly. Su Zhengxing said, Miss Su Xian, I heard that the #1 master of the Lotus sect is Jingru, a junior who has just entered the sect. I am Jingru. Truly took a step into the field, and stood beside Su Xian. He closed fists, saluted, and said, "Greetings to the 3 seniors of the Imperial Extreme School." Even though the 2 young men didn't look old, their auras had been through the vicissitudes of life. They were definitely not young people. "Hee, you are that Jingru?" Su Jingxing looked him up and down. Chu Li's aura suddenly exuded and no longer restrained it. Suddenly, it was as if a towering giant mountain had suddenly risen and pierced the clouds in front of their eyes, forming an imposing manner that could suppress heaven and earth. The expressions of Su Zhengxing and the other 2 changed greatly. They had already overestimated Chu Li's cultivation level. The number 1 master of the Lotus Sect would definitely not be mediocre. But no matter how much they overestimated him, they didn't think it would be like this. The 3 of them stood in front of Chu Li, their bodies trembling. They felt as if this strange mountain was pressing down on them, and they were about to be crushed like ants. Their bodies trembled, and their bodies were drenched in sweat. Chu Li calmly looked at the 3 of them, and his aura rose again. The strange mountain that reached the sky suddenly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, it became 10 times its size. It was as if the whole world was covered, and breathing became difficult. Please remember the original domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version, am. Chapter 4044. Chu Li suddenly spoke with a smile. "I'm Jingru. May I know what business do you have with me?" His voice was like thunder exploding in the trio's ears. Their ears buzzed, their minds rumbled, and their vision darkened. In the end, they were no longer able to withstand this intense shock. Their bodies suddenly went limp and their legs gave out. They fell to the ground. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "What do you mean?" Su Xian looked at the trio, then at Chu Li. She shook her head helplessly. "Jingru, don't be so rude. They're guests from afar." Although she said that, the corner of her lips curled up. Chu Li closed fists, saluted. "Yes, I've been rude." Sigh. Su Xian sighed. "I wanted to see the pure Een blade. How can I see it now that you've done this?" Chu Li apologized. "Yes, I was too impatient." Jing Shui was already standing next to Su Xian. She sized up the trio on the ground and frowned. "Masters Junior Su Xian, why are these 3 here?" "To learn from each other." Su Xian looked at the trio on the ground and shook her head. "They've just cultivated the pure Een blade. I heard it's a marvelous technique that can slay one's 3 souls." "Oh," Chu Li was surprised. "There's such a technique that can slay one's 3 souls? The power must be extraordinary. It's a pity I didn't get to see it." Su Xian shook her head. "Jingru, you need to change your impatience." Yes. Chu Li acted obediently. He looked at the trio on the ground and smiled. "Why don't I retract my attack?" As soon as he said that, the trio flew up and hovered in the air. Then 3 lotuses appeared in the sky, like 3 white clouds floating in the sky. Each of the lotuses released a beam of light that landed on each of the 3 people. The trio felt warm and comfortable. Their strength returned and surged violently, as if their cultivation level was strengthened by a blessing. In the blink of an eye, they recovered their cultivation level and were more energetic than before. They looked up and saw that they were stepping on the void. A beam of light shone from the void and continuously injected energy as if it was endless. Chu Li coughed. The beam of light disappeared instantly. The 3 white lotuses in the sky also disappeared as if they were never there. "Seniors, I'm sorry for offending you." Chu Li smiled and gave them a fist salute. "Please forgive me." The 3 of them were shocked, but their expressions were calm. They had already adjusted their mentality and restrained their initial arrogance. They knew that they were no match for Chu Li. After witnessing Chu Li's powerful strength, they felt that they were as weak as ants in front of Chu Li. As a member of the martial arts world, strength was everything. This was a concept that had been engraved in their bones. Since Chu Li was so powerful and had far surpassed their level, he had naturally won their respect. Su Jingxing's expression was solemn as he slowly said, as expected of the Lotus Flower sect's #1 expert, Jing Ru's name is well-deserved, admirable. You flatter me. Chu Li smiled. Su Jingxing glanced at Su Xian and said calmly, how about this? I will only make one move. Consider it a demonstration of the pure moon saber. I cannot come here for nothing. Su Xian was not in a hurry to agree. Su Jingxing seemed weak and helpless, but she did not let down her guard. These guys were all strong-willed and would not lose their fighting spirit so easily. She turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li nodded. Then I will take one move from you, please. The pure moon saber can injure one's soul. Su Jingxing said in a deep voice, be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, he gently waved his palm. TSS. A soft whistling sound rang in between Chu Li's eyebrows, then disappeared without a trace. Although the pure moon saber was insidious and was completely different from inner energy, it could not be defended with inner energy. However, it was nothing to Chu Li. Su Jingxing frowned and stared at Chu Li. He wanted to see the changes in Chu Li clearly, but Chu Li did not show any abnormalities and looked at him calmly. Seeing that Su Jingxing was still staring at him, Chu Li said, why don't you try 2 more moves? Don't show any mercy. All right. Su Jingxing was secretly resentful. This was already a move that he gave his all. He respected Chu Li, but would not show mercy because of this. Instead, his killing intent was burning. He wanted to finish him off with one move and sweep away the obstacle on the path of the Imperial Gate's unification. Please, Chu Li said. Su Jingxing shouted, be careful. His face suddenly turned pale. He burned his lifespan and increased the power of this move by 2 times. It was a move that he did not care about at all costs. He still held onto a glimmer of hope. If the previous move made Jing Ru underestimate him, then this move could end his life. TSS. Amidst the whistling sound, a sheep whirlwind appeared on Chu Li's forehead and swept the hair in front of his forehead. Then, everything returned to normal. Chu Li shook his head. This is the pure moon saber? Senior Su, tell me the truth. If this saber technique was used by another person, it would be useless against any top-notch master of the creation sect. Impossible. Su Jingxing shouted. Chu Li smiled and said, Senior Su, do you think I would lie to you? He faintly showed a hint of disdain. It was obvious that he did not want to lie to others, nor did he want to lie to someone who had lost to him. Su Jingxing's heart was pierced by his smile, but he gritted his teeth and said calmly, the creation sect can't be this strong. Chu Li said, the martial arts that the creation sect cultivates are strange. It might not be as effective against other martial arts, but it can restrain your pure moon saber. Su Jingxing frowned. He was moved by Chu Li's words and felt that Chu Li would not lie to him. This was something that could be easily found out, and he was going to the creation sect soon. Chu Li said calmly, Senior Su, you're going to the creation sect too, right? Yes, Su Jingxing said in a low voice. Chu Li said, then you must be careful. The creation sect is stronger than you think, even stronger than us. The last time I went, I almost couldn't escape. Then we'll take our leave. Su Jingxing said slowly. He was also very tactful. Originally, he came to establish his dominance, but in the end, he was the one who established his dominance and was taught a harsh lesson. If he stayed any longer, he would only embarrass himself. As for the punishment, he did not even mention it. He gave a fist salute and turned to leave. Su Xian bowed lightly as a way to bid him farewell. Su Jingxing and the other 2 left solemnly, but they felt that they were in a sorry state. After leaving the Lotus sect, they turned their heads and looked back. They could vaguely see a huge lotus vaguely appearing in the sky. Sigh. Su Jingxing's face darkened. He shook his head. It was not a good sign to have a bad start. He originally thought that the Lotus sect was a soft target that was easy to bully. He did not expect that his wishful thinking would come to nothing. Instead, they were disgraced and the news would soon spread. They must regain their dignity from the creation sect. Otherwise, the Imperial Pole School would really become a joke. Not to mention unifying the 5 sects of the South Sky. It would be difficult for them to keep their original position. They had no way out. Thinking of this, Su Jingxing turned to look at the two people behind him and said in a low voice, "Elder Zheng, go back and ask the Grand Supreme Elder to come personally." "Okay." A young man nodded lightly. "Then can Jingru's words be trusted?" "I'd rather believe her than not," Su Jingxing said in a low voice. "That's true. Let's go." The young man nodded, gave a fist salute, and turned to leave. He took a step into the void and used the void diversion. Su Jingxing took a deep look at the Lotus sect. Thousands of thoughts intertwined, and he could not sort them out. He could only let out a long sigh, turned around, and hurriedly left. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. Chapter 4045. After they left, Su Xian glanced at Chu Li. Jingxue smiled. "Senior brother, you are helping the creation sect." Chu Li grinned and said, "The creation sect is very powerful. It's better to let the people from the Imperial faction investigate and see if they can find out more." "What do you think, senior brother?" Jingxue asked. Chu Li shook his head and frowned. He sighed. "It's difficult. But since the Imperial faction is known as the first of the 5 sects in Tianan, they must have a strong foundation and amazing strength. There must be something they haven't shown." He looked at Su Xian. "Masters Jr., if it wasn't this person who came today, I would have killed him. This plain moonblade is too sinister. It was especially effective against the Lotus Flower sect, Church of 9 Evil, and Creation sect. They were killed by the plain moonblade and could not reincarnate. To the Lotus Flower sect and the other 3 sects, they were mortal enemies that must be eliminated. They were even a great threat to the enlightened masters. This Su Jingxing has a good character." Su Xian nodded. "He is righteous and famous in the martial arts world. Unfortunately, he is a disciple of the Imperial faction. No matter how righteous Su Jingxing was, he was still thinking about the interests of the Imperial faction. If it wasn't for Jingru being strong and suppressing them, the Imperial faction would have humiliated the Lotus Flower sect. This had nothing to do with character, but the interests of the sect. It was not personal feelings." Chu Li said, "The next time I meet a disciple of the Imperial faction, I might kill him." "Okay, I will report to the sect leader." Su Xian nodded. Chu Li sighed. "This matter has finally come to an end. I'm going to isolate myself for a while." He wanted to go to the Sutra Tower of God of Heaven Mountain to read. It was like an endless treasure waiting for him to discover. However, there were always trifling matters that prevented him from doing as he wished. Now that the matter was finally cleaned up, he could read his book in peace and contentment. Jingxue said, "I will call you if there is anything. If it is not important, I will not disturb you." "Senior brother, don't worry." Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. After a fist salute, he disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in the Sutra Tower and rooted himself inside. He did not come out. He did not even eat, drink, or sleep. He read like a madman. His body was strong. He did not need to eat, drink, or sleep without hindrance. He could last for 10 days before coming back to rest. In the evening, he came out of the Sutra Tower and returned to his courtyard. He was too lazy to move. The tower was still in his mind. A scripture pagoda had already appeared in his mind, and it was exactly the same as the one that had just appeared. Even the positions of the books were exactly the same. All the books that he had read before appeared in it. As for the books that he had not read before, their names were also there, but they were shown in gray. It would take a long time for this enormous scripture pagoda to completely fill up his mind, so he decided to peek into everything. This would greatly increase his intelligence and martial arts, an unimaginable increase. However, if he wanted to read through the entire Sutra Depository Pagoda, he needed a stable environment. He could not waste his time on mundane matters. Although he was infatuated with the Sutra Tower and was unable to extricate himself from it, he still missed Shao Qi and the others the most. Every night, he would see their shadows. Therefore, the most important thing was to deal with Zhou Qinglong. He had to suppress Zhou Qinglan until he found the method to go down to the lower realm. After that, he could ignore the changes in the world and spend time with his women. He could then slowly read through the entire scripture tower. The sunset turned the courtyard into a rose color. The god of Heaven Mountain was not covered by clouds. When Yi carried a box to his side, she opened the box and placed the dishes on the table. The aroma of the dishes filled Chu Li's nostrils. Chu Li's appetite was aroused, and he began to eat. When he brought a pot of wine, she poured the wine and handed it to him. Chu Li glanced at her and took the jade cup. He took a sip and praised, "Good wine. Elder Lu sent the heavenly flower brew." When Yi said, "It's made from the essence of the sun and moon and osmanthus. It's rare." Chu Li shook his head. "I can't smell the osmanthus." "Osmanthus and osmanthus are different," when Yi said. Chu Li smiled. "So you know about osmanthus?" When Yi said, "I've seen the fragrance of osmanthus." Chu Li sized her up and asked, "Miss Wen, where did you learn the Ashura sword invitation?" When Yi was stunned, she shook her head. "What gray cloud sword invitation?" Chu Li smiled. "If it's any other martial art, I might be mistaken. It's definitely not the gray cloud sword invitation. I didn't expect you to hide it so well. Sir, you've misunderstood me." When he frowned, she looked wronged. "I really don't know about the gray cloud sword invitation." Chu Li waved his hand. "Forget it. Maybe I saw it wrong. Do you still have more of this wine?" "Yes." When he said, Chu Li said, "Then fill it up." When he poured all the wine in the pot into the jade cup, Chu Li took a sip and sighed. He seemed melancholic. He could only taste such good wine once. How could he not be melancholic? When he stood quietly at the side, Chu Li glanced at her occasionally. When he was calm and gentle. After a while, Chu Li was full. He stood up and stretched. He waved his hand. "You can go. I'll go down and digest my food. I'll enter the Sutra Tower after 10 days. "Yes," when he responded. She removed the wine cup, pot, and lunchbox. Chu Li appeared in his courtyard in a flash. The lotus flower sect was still peaceful. However, most of the disciples were not in the sect. They had gone out to do their own things. He summoned the disciples to return and hid for a while. Many things had been delayed. He needed to make up for it now. He needed a lot of manpower and resources. Jing Shui floated over. Chu Li glanced at the entire courtyard. His face turned solemn. "Senior brother, what happened?" Jing Shui landed gracefully like a startled swan. "The gray cloud sword invitation is gone," Chu Li said. He left it here as a test. He felt that the Lotus Flower sect was not united. There were spies from the Church of Nine Ghosts. It was hard to guarantee that there were no spies from other sections. The disappearance of the gray cloud sword invitation proved that his guess was correct. However, he did not know which sect spies were. It was not easy to find them. However, he had a bad feeling when he saw the faint aura of the gray cloud sword invitation on one E. When E was a divine lady, she always stayed on God of Heaven Mountain. Why did she have the aura of the gray cloud sword invitation? Moreover, it was the aura of the gray cloud sword invitation that he had leaked. The aura of the original gray cloud sword invitation was different from the one he had drawn. It was a slight difference. Others cannot feel it, but he could. He had written 2 gray cloud sword invitations. One was at God of Heaven Mountain. The other was at Lotus Flower Sect. Although the words were similar, they were different, especially the aura. The gray cloud sword invitation for the 2 girls was simpler. It had lower requirements for aptitude and strength. It was similar to the simplified version of the gray cloud sword. Its power was reduced by half, but it was enough to protect himself. If he could cultivate this and the complete version of the gray cloud sword invitation, he would have a ladder to climb. The gray cloud sword invitation for God of Heaven Mountain was loyal to the original version. It was almost straight to the sky. There was no ladder to climb. It was extremely difficult. His gray cloud sword invitation was getting better and better. That was why he could write the simplified version. He could not write it for God of Heaven Mountain. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.